Call to order the June 27th council study session. First item on the agenda first item is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we have our agenda approved. Next up, we have approval of minutes from the June 6th regular meeting. Motion on that.
I move approval.
Second.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
That's been approved. We move on to public comments on items that are not on the agenda. Go ahead.
Dean Soish, 1031 3rd Avenue Northeast in Waverly. I have two comments or two questions, I guess. First one is I pulled up the agenda late this afternoon at home, and I could not get into any of the supporting documents. Is there a reason?
I think they're working.
Not on public access. I tried
This is public access.
Okay. I couldn't get into them.
I don't know, maybe, what version of browser do you use?
I was into Firefox, pulled up the City of Waverly website,
Right.
but I could get the agenda, but I couldn't get any of the supporting
If you would
documents.
give me a call tomorrow, maybe we can work it out over the phone.
Okay. I'm not sure where I'll be, but we'll figure it out. Second thing is, June 6th at the council meeting on your consent agenda, you approved a payment of almost $14,000 to Green Image Landscaping for work at the Hundley property. Not only I, but several of us have talked at coffee shops, etc. And I vaguely remember that the council decided that the contractor on that project was going to get charged for the repairs to Hundley's property. Is there a reason that it got billed and paid by the city? Or what's going to happen to that? Thank you.
When we did the negotiation with them, this was a property that was affected by the change of the box culvert and the redoing of the street, and we would have bought a easement from them, and we would have made the corrections that were made to the property the way it was, regardless. So that was a responsibility of the city to do that as a part of the project. The only payment that was expected to come from the contractor or the engineering company was the $3,500 that we paid in addition to that, and that did come from the contractor. We billed them for that, and they paid it to us. Otherwise, that other work that was done by Green Image would have been done had it not been, if we'd have known about it ahead of time, we would have acquired the easement and paid for those improvements as a part of the project.
All the extra work that was caused by it being 2 feet too high was paid for by the contracting company or the?
No, the city paid for adjusting the lawns of any property that was changed, the elevation were changed. And so in that case, that property, we would have changed that elevation regardless of whether we knew about it ahead of time or didn't know about it ahead of time. We found out about it right when the project was being constructed as opposed to knowing about it ahead of time. Other places, we bought easements and we paid compensation to people to do the work that was done, and we paid for work that was done in other areas of the dry run. So we did what we would have done had it been known ahead of time. We just would have done it and paid for it ahead of time and arranged for it ahead of time.
I just thought it was different because I know, like on my property, a year and 2 years in advance, you got an easement because my backyard's obviously tore up or whatever. But this was, they admitted that they made a mistake and made it too high.
No.
They did actually.
No.
They had a meeting.
No.
They did.
That's wrong. That is absolutely wrong. The error that was made was in identifying the need for the easement. And there were 3 properties along that section where they didn't identify the easement that was needed in their front yard.
You're saying the whole time that they knew that they were going to build that road 2 feet higher,
It was
didn't
built.
tell anybody.
It,
So which way, did they make a mistake in not telling us, or did they do it wrong?
They did not identify the need for the easement when they were putting the plans together. The project was built according to the plans that were developed. The plans that were developed, 9 months ahead of time. Did they fail to identify the easement that was needed? Yes.
So the difference was the $3,500 in engineering costs that they didn't identify that they needed to make modifications to the yard. And you said that was covered by WHKS.
Actually, the $3,500 was a payment that was made to the homeowners for additional time and effort that they made in working with the city in that regard. The extra engineering that they did to do the elevations and those kinds of things, they did on their own
Correct.
and did not charge back to the project. The only thing that got charged to the project was work that we would have done anyway. And because of that unique nature of that property with the fencing and the different the sidewalk squares that had to be relaid, picked up and put back so they wouldn't have a brand-new square of concrete for this historic home, that all would have had to be done to change the slope to the street and the slope to the intake that would have taken the water from that lawn now to the intake that took it to the dry run. And that
The
was,
reason it had to be done is because the road ended up 15 inches higher than what it was before.
it ended up the way it
That's
was
correct.
engineered.
The roadway was raised, as you said, 15 to 18 inches, and the top of the curb ended up above the sidewalk.
Right, and would have flooded their property, and so we went through all of that design work to fix all of that problem, put drains in, and
Right. Throughout the entire corridor, we acquired easements because we were going to be grading, because we were going to be changing the grade of the adjacent property owners. This one was different. There were 3 of them along the 4th Street corridor that were missed.
So it's a timing issue in terms of when that became obvious and when the work needed to be done.
That's
well, it
correct.
became obvious when it, I don't know, I guess whatever you want to say, but they obviously either built it wrong or didn't tell us that they were going to build it 2 feet higher, otherwise you would have gotten that easement and designed Hunley's yards before the street was even poured. But we waited until after they poured it, and then everyone found out, well, crap, it's going to flood their yards, so then we had to do all this design work, hire a contractor, get the easement. So,
And from time to time, that happens. That,
people make mistakes, is what you're saying.
yes,
Okay. That's,
it wasn't intentional.
I'm not saying it was intentional. I'm just saying somebody made a mistake, and it sounds like it was a contractor. And then once we found out about it, we worked with the Hunleys to make it right.
We worked with everyone to make it right, yes.
Just to be clear here, it was not the contractor that built the road.
Design people, whoever designed it.
They built it to the specs they were given, so they did not err in what they built.
That's correct.
Where the oversight was in the design process of identifying that extra work needed to be done.
The additional easement that was needed, yes.
Or they designed the road 2 feet too high.
No, they did not. That's been made very clear.
Okay, so if they did not design the road wrong, then the design company just didn't let us know that we would have to fix yards ahead of time.
Okay, when you say they didn't let us know, you make it sound like they knew ahead of time and just chose not to tell us.
Well, you just said they knew that they built the road to the right height, so they would have known ahead of time that that road was going to be 2 feet higher than what it is today.
They neglected to get the easement, is what I understand him to say.
Okay. But it was more than just an easement. It was an easement plus a whole bunch of work, fix, drainage,
Right.
a whole bunch of
But
stuff because of that.
but what I'm understanding it is that had they identified it earlier, the work and the cost would have been the same. It's just a matter of timing of when they or we or whoever realized that they had neglected to get the easement.
The easement didn't cover all the costs of the work. We paid a whole bunch of money to get the work done for their property. So that's
We would
the
have done
discrepancy.
regardless if
Right.
it was known up front or not.
I guess the most important thing are the Hundley is satisfied with the work as it's done.
I haven't heard anything complaining about it, no.
I
think
had
they did a great
I actually had an email from them on another matter a couple of months ago, that we were exchanging some information about, and in that context, because they weren't happy with something else, they went on to say that they were happy with the work that had been done in the email that I received.
It took time, but it got worked out.
Okay, any other public comments? Okay, then, study session calendar. First item on this calendar for today is the Iowa Highway 3 Bremer Avenue reconstruction public information and council update. So we've had the public information meeting prior to the session here from 5 to 7 tonight, and have a little bit more on the council update side of things.
Yes, thank you. I'm Scott Sweet. I'm the project manager for WHKS on this project, and as stated, we did have the second public information meeting tonight. I will run through the presentation that I gave at 6. Some of the stuff I'll try to gloss over. I see you have a little lengthy agenda, so I'll try to keep it brief for you. But as I said at the meeting, our real objective was to get comments, thoughts from the general public as we move ahead of the project, to have those comments really help us out to get that information from the citizens of Waverly as we move ahead. So that's why we have these meetings. And to throw out ideas, tonight's main topic was maintenance of traffic, but we covered a lot of things, or a lot of items. So we'll try to cover those as I go. We had City of Waverly staff there, Iowa DOT staff was there, and we had 3 people from WHKS there to answer questions. I won't go through too much. The project is needed based on the condition of the road. A concept statement was developed for the Iowa Department of Transportation, looked at full reconstruction or a mill and overlay. DOT has selected the full reconstruction part of the project, and that's where we're at now. We've done the survey, we've started the design development, we've had 2 public information meetings now. And we'll continue that. We also had the right-of-way people that are sub-consultant to us here talking to people about easements tonight that we would need to be able to construct the project. And basically we'll take the comments from here. We'll move ahead with the development of the design. As I said, this project is for pavement reconstruction, total removal and reconstruction. Also be redoing the drainage structures, the storm sewer system. Also, this time with the street being removed, it's an opportunity for the city to upgrade any utilities. The main utility that we're looking at in this section is the water main, replacing some of the 4-inch lines with a parallel line on the other side of the street. Generally, they're on the north side in the parking. We're looking at putting in some parallel lines along the south side and new services to the residences, businesses as we go through there. Also, ADA compliance at the intersections. That's a requirement of an Iowa Department of Transportation job, is to meet the new guidelines for ADA compliance at all intersections that are encompassed by the project. So that's sort of the basic thing. This one sort of changed. I wonder why this. Oh, because I loaded the wrong one here. Well, I can add the sentence in here. We proceeded, since the last public information meeting, we proceeded with the 3-lane section, and we were doing that until we received the traffic study, which actually I received the draft study at about 2:30 this afternoon. Haven't had a chance to review that, but basically, everyone knows in Waverly knows what a 4-lane looks like, so we've been showing what a 3-lane would look like until such time that we can give a draft study to the Iowa Department of Transportation and to the city so they can review it, look at our recommendation. So how we move ahead after we get that done is determination of if it's a 3-lane or a 4-lane. Hasn't been decided. I just wanted to stress that we're showing it as a 3-lane on our displays yet, because everybody knows what a 4-lane looks like and they're not sure what the 3-lane is going to do. There is one little exception there. 4th West to 1st Street East is showing up as a 4-lane, and that's basically because of the truck turning movements from Nestle's going south on 1st to the west on over to 4th. So I did mention in the meeting about some of the what we consider studies that have been done as far as conversion from 4-lane to 3-lane. It's a safety improvement for a lot of different reasons. With 2 lanes in each direction, or 2 lanes in one direction, you have speed differentials. This eliminates those. It reduces the conflict points at intersections, turning movements with through traffic. Each one of those conflict points is an opportunity for a crash. It reduces those because you've gone down to that. Reduced speeds also lessen the severity of accidents. When we were originally talking about this, sort of ties in with the no dedicated bike lanes. On the first public information meeting, we were showing dedicated bike lanes in the along the route. One of the thoughts that came out of that is there was, is there a need to show those as designated bike lanes? And on this display, we did not show those as designated bike lanes. We showed them as a buffer area between the through lanes and the parked cars. So trying to not necessarily dictate that is a bike lane. That's where everybody needs to be, because on a street that has considerable traffic at times, are we forcing maybe a novice rider out into the street where they could be someplace else? So that's sort of the rationale that on this one we did not show the dedicated bike lanes. As we move ahead with the traffic study and the improvements, those are our recommendations that we'll make, and then the city and the DOT can provide guidance on how we want to proceed with the project. Also, that was probably one of the bigger issues that was discussed tonight, was the 4-lane versus the 3-lane. And basically, with the traffic study done, we now have data that is germane to the city of Waverly. So we can make a recommendation then based on that data, provide that to you, to the city and to the Iowa DOT to make a final decision on how to proceed with the project. We also talked, there's some comments, pretty much the same comments that we received the last one about the 3-lane versus the 4-lane. If you have implement dealers driving down, everybody's used to the 4-lane, why do we need to change it? Those are things that'll have to be taken into consideration. There was comments that, if our recommendation comes back to be a 3-lane section, what recourse do the citizens of Waverly have? And that's basically, you and the DOT, can overrule our recommendations, but, we're going to provide our recommendation based on the data that we collected by analyzing, getting traffic counts during the AM peak and PM peak times during the day, and using that in the software that we use to determine how we should move forward on this project. But just wanted to make sure that you knew that was sort of the main point of a lot of discussion that we had, not only during the meeting or after the meeting, but when people were reviewing the scrolls too. So the other items here, some of the sidewalk replacement areas we refined. We went out with Mike on a drive-through, and this project requires us to do the intersections as part of the project because it's a DOT with federal funds. The sidewalks in the block areas are at the discretion of the city of Waverly, so we've looked at refining that. And then, as I said, probably the bigger thing that we talked about tonight was sort of some of the staging and maintenance of traffic while we're building it. Wanted to get that out there, get feedback from the community on how that would affect them, their property, their business, and so I have some slides to cover that here that we can go through and do that. Maintenance of traffic, I said that was our main topic. We talked about staging, constructability for the contractor as it's can be constructed in a quicker time frame. That's probably a better price that the city would get and the Iowa DOT would get for their portion of the project. It's also accessibility for vehicles and pedestrians during the construction process. How do they get to their businesses? Those are all things that we look at as we start to develop the maintenance of traffic plan. As I said, one of the first sections, we looked at the first section was 20th Street to 12th Street Northwest. We've looked at it as constructing it as a detour, a partial detour with 1-lane detour or 2 lanes. And basically these are what the displays look like tonight. Basically we color coded them to provide if it was 1 stage or 2 stage. The top one here Basically, you can see it's a lot of green for that first pace. That's where we're looking at, is there an opportunity to close from 20th to approximately Casey's with one additional granular or temporary paved access from the Parkway over to the preschool childcare center, that everyone else would have access either off of Backage Road or off of the frontage road in that area. So we could close down from 20th to Casey's and give the contractor that whole stretch of road to reconstruct at one time. So that would be more efficient for him, probably faster for him to do, hopefully cost a little bit less because he would have access to the whole thing. The other thing we looked at in that section was to stage it half at a time, basically the north half and then the south half. And basically we looked at two different options there. One was building a half at a time, and well, we'd build a half at a time no matter what, but where do you put the traffic that wants the through traffic? So if we put 2 lanes of traffic head to head there, you're looking at 8-foot lanes, which is really too narrow. So the other one is if we staged it half at a time, because this portion of the roadway is only 49 foot wide, would we detour one of the lanes using the same detour that we used when we did the Dry Run Creek, which was 10th Avenue up to 4th, but only detour one of the bounds. So either the eastbound or the westbound, depending on which side we were building, would be detoured. The other one would be allowed to have traffic on it. So those are some of the ideas that we put out there, trying to get comments tonight from the citizens to see, which one would they prefer. When we look at section 2, which is 12th to 6th, and section 3, which was then 6th to 1st Street Northeast, and actually you'll see section 5 here, we actually added a section 4 we added into the project, which is basically 1st to 1st on either side of the river, because out of the meeting last time that was one that a lot of people thought we need to get that one done, get it done on the river so that we can have good access across there. So we added a stage in for that. Basically, 2, 3, and 5 look at either 2 stages or 3 stages. Basically, 2 stages is half at a time with head-to-head with maintaining 2 lanes of traffic each way. And as you can see in our displays here, they're probably a little bit hard for you to see, but basically half and half. This 3 stage is when we looked at the utilities, the water main, and the drainage structures, the storm sewer system. Those are located at the back of curb or in the parking lanes that are currently out there in the 69-foot or the downtown area. So we would, the 3rd stage, you would be able to go in and put those utilities in, maybe put some temporary surfacing on those, and then switch the traffic and do half at a time. But it just may add some flexibility to the contractor schedule or to the contractor's work to be able to get the underground utilities basically done and then move into the paving. But, it's just ideas that we want to put out and sort of see what people are feeling, how that works. If it does add some, complexity to it as far as the business owners, because you may be in front of their business twice. So those are things we wanted to get out there and get some comments on. We also have started to look at the construction phasing. This is a 2-year project, 2017 and 2018. And as we start to finalize the staging, looking at that, it's the construction phases. What do we build when, and how do we fit that into the needs of the city? And basically what we've done is looked at 2017 is in yellow, and basically that's from 20th to 12th, and then what we're called the 1st to 1st section. So we're working in 2 different areas, so we have some separation. Now, 20th may be detoured, so that helps us with the traffic. At least I feel that does. It allows a contractor in there. But then what do you build? The next year would be what's in green. The thing is, this is a 2-year project. There's a lot of work to get done in 2 years. So we looked at an area in blue, which is, I don't know if you can tell, but it's basically the utility portion if we went with a 3-stage in the downtown area. So could that be, moved ahead into the 2017 if we had a perfect weather year, perfect conditions for construction? How do we look at that? And then some of it's based on what we receive for comments from the city or from the citizens of the community. So that's what we're sort of working on now, moving ahead on sort of how we can package everything, maintain as much traffic as we can in town. One of the things I want to note is, over the winter, we want to make sure that the road's open to all lanes of traffic, that we don't have any problems with maintenance, with snow. And so that really precludes us from starting half of the road, because we are changing the profile, the center line elevation of the road back to what it was before it's had 6 overlays, and so it has the hump. We're going to be lowering that. So if we were to build half of the road and leave that over the winter, you may have a differential, height in the 2 roadways. So if whatever we move ahead into like 17, if we have that, we want to be a chunk of a full width pavement, not half of the roadway, because then we're going to run into problems where we need to provide asphalt wedges. There's going to be a big hump in there. How do we maintain that during the winter, especially with snow removal? So as we move ahead, we'll be taking a closer look at that as we go ahead. Schedule-wise, we had the first public information meeting in April. This one was in June. The next one, where we will have the traffic study completed, reviewed, have a recommendation from the city of the Iowa DOT, and pretty much like to have probably about 75% of the plans done at that time. So that's in August, early September. This will be put out to bids in February of 2017. Construction will probably start sometime in April of 2017, and as I said, it'll be a 2-year project. So that's a quick, brief discussion on what we had. I'm sure you'll be able to see the entire thing on Facebook. So if you have any, I'm here to answer any questions or comments that you have that we can move ahead with.
I guess one big question or comment I have is, I walk in, I got stopped by 3 or 4 business owners in town and stuff, and so, you did say that you're going to come back with your recommendation based off the traffic study. Are you going to use the public comments as part of your recommendations? Or, because they just aren't feeling like, they were disappointed to see that it was still 3-lane today, because they thought there was enough comments from last meeting to have that already changed, and so they're worried that you're having public sessions, but are we really going to listen to the public, or are you just going to base your stuff on traffic studies and flow and whatever?
I guess, yeah. And I tried to explain that to them, that everyone knows what the 4-lane in Waverly looks like. Here's what a 3-lane does. Until we have the actual data that we can look at the traffic study, see how a 3-lane operates differently than a 4-lane, if it's better, safer, or whatever. Our recommendation will not probably include, it may include a statement that there's been comments for or against one or the other. But really, our recommendation is to use the data that we have, the modeling that we're able to develop out of that data, and make our recommendation based on that, not necessarily on comments from the citizens one way or the other. That's where we instructed them. That's where they need to contact the city council.
I guess that was their main point. Is I guess
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what good does it do them citizens to come to these then if their input really needs to come to us and not you? They should be contacting us, right?
Oh, all the time they should be giving you their opinions, and ours too, because we need to know those, but I can't base a study on.
You're going to come back
certain-
based on your data
Yeah.
and not use citizen input in the design.
Well, really, as we look through the design, we're replacing the streets at the same width they are today. So really, when we get down to it, a lot of this is, what do we do with the pavement markings to mark it as a 3-lane versus a 4-lane? And if it goes to a 3-lane, how do we update the traffic signals, head locations? Design-wise, it's the same either way.
Okay.
It's the same. It's the same as everything. It's really, when you come down to it, how it's going to operate for the city, and that's basically paint and signage.
And then I got asked by them, or by a lot of people, who gets to make that decision? Is it the Waverly City Council that decides for 3-lane versus 4-lane, or is it the Iowa DOT? Who gets the final say?
I would like to think it would be a consensus of the two organizations that you come to an agreement.
They're hoping that it's our decision because they want,
Yeah.
they want to have input on that, so.
I think
Yeah,
another
and-
reason it's important for citizens to come to these is that I realize that the 3 or 4 lane is one of the central points of emphasis, but there are other, I think, details of phasing and of easements and things like that are very important for the people who live along those stretches, to whether they're business owners or residential, or schools or daycare centers or
There's
whatever.
concerns over the staging and closing,
Right.
closing off West Bremer. There's concerns over that.
Right, so I think that kind of thing is something that is important for them to share at these public meetings, because I assume, will affect your planning. I mean, those kinds of comments, well, the study to me is a little bit different. I mean, because you ask somebody, to do a study based on data, and then I think it's our responsibility to weigh whatever comes out of that, or integrate it, or weigh it against whatever it is with what we're hearing from citizens and businesses and so on.
Data is data. I mean, you do what your people want you to do, so. That's,
Well, I guess I would want to do
Safe for
something where
100
I felt
years.
I was informed about it, so.
On the West Bremer portion that you're talking about doing in 2017 there, that 15th and 16th Street intersection by the schools, middle school and the high school, and West Cedar. We've tried to, I know when we've done construction on the streets in those areas, we've tried to get it timed so that we can get it done during the summer window between when school is let out and when they get back in August. Is that something that's going to be able to be done with that long of a section, or is that just going to have to be closed and they're going to have to come up with an alternative for that spring? And because I know the construction window doesn't time with the school calendar quite.
Yeah,
as
we're
much.
able to do 16th Street and 2nd Avenue, when school's out, because they're a lot smaller project, not as involved. And this one, I guess that's a direction that we would take from the council, but that, how is that going to affect the duration? You would, basically could lose 2 months of construction to 2.5. If the weather's good, you can get started in April. You lose April, May, and a couple weeks in June, and to try to get all that done before August. With that stretch, 8 blocks of road with utilities would be hard to get done and try to maintain that. It would probably recommend to find a different way to get to the school, which there are other opportunities, and that can be one of the things that we work on too, is what signing do you need, where do you want to install stop signs on some of your side streets if they're, in that area, to get them to 2nd, or if you send them south down to 10th. It could be part of the plans also.
The other question, I guess, for you or maybe for Mike or James is it's on here as August 22nd. He said for August or September for the third public information meeting. And then the next item on the kind of calendar there is the February letting. Where in that does the council have the chance to weigh in? Is it going to be after that third meeting and at that update? Or are we going to have a meeting in September or October that it's on our agenda to say, this is how we want to proceed?
Like, it's going to be up to the council as to when you want to have that decision made. I wouldn't think you'd do it at the same time you have that last meeting, obviously. But I don't know, what do you think, a month is enough time, Mike?
I was just going to suggest that maybe the July study session is where we have a discussion with the council. And I would suggest, not a voting discussion, but let's have, a good discussion on, what the roadway is going to look like.
Okay.
We know today, as you've seen, there are some sections that will not work well as a 3-lane because of the turning truck traffic between 4th Street Southwest and 1st Street Northwest. That section simply will not function as a 3-lane because of the need to accommodate turning truck traffic. So even if you guys vote for a 3-lane, there will be a section that will be 4-lane.
Yeah, I guess what Tim is saying, I mean, this needs to come to a vote because we need to vote on 4 versus 3. So that's
Well, so July study session, we'll kind of look at, we'll get a preliminary look at the data then prior to that.
Yes,
for
my
public
plan is, I'm out of the office tomorrow, but probably Wednesday, that we'll send the traffic study to Mike for his review and to the Iowa Department of Transportation for their review, get their comments back so that we can submit to the council and to the Iowa DOT a final signed report with the recommendation. But there may be some issues, as we did the draft, we'd like you to look at this. What about this? So that we can address those comments, pretty quickly. But I think we should be able to get that done by the,
And I think
July
there could be,
council meeting.
there could be other issues though too. I mean, I heard several people at the end of the session over there talking about diagonal versus parallel parking. So, I mean, I don't know how much is, predetermined and how much room there is still for input, but it's, it's not just 3-lane and 4-lane. There's still people talking about bike lanes. I was unable, unfortunately, I was out of town. I wasn't able to come to the first public meeting, but so I don't know exactly how, what the formal nature is of integrating all of that, but I would be very surprised if we have consensus around all of those things. And so, is it a vote? I mean, is that what's going to happen? And if so,
Have to.
what are we going to vote on
we're
exactly?
going to have to vote on the final design.
Yeah.
'Cause we're not, like you said, no one's going to agree.
Right.
But from the input I got, if I don't go with 4-lane, I'm going to be kicked out of town. So, I mean, we're going to have to vote on it. So, and whatever design that comes up with, we're going to have some options to decide on.
Yeah, and some communication with DOT as far as how much input we really have on that versus them coming and saying, nope, it's our project, we're doing it our way.
Right, and I would agree with that. I think once you get the study in July, we look at whether it's a study session or the 18th meeting. If we're having a study session in July, I think it's still up in the air. You'll have the August meeting then, which is the final kind of meeting for input and probably discussion at a point. And sometime after that, you'd probably have to let it kind of simmer a little bit and then come and have a vote on it. Probably sometime September, I would think, maybe first or third meeting.
Okay.
That'd probably be the timing
Well,
and.
And what we'll be voting on at that point is the design, all
Yeah,
aspects of the design.
Yeah, hopefully between now and then, you'd have discussion of what points would have to be
Right.
decided along the way.
Right.
The major one being
Yep.
design or not, or,
Yeah. Okay.
and hopefully we can determine in that time period too, what impact that is, DOT versus city versus that consensus of how it'll work together and just where that final authority lies.
For the public, when WHKS comes in August and does their final one, to me, it'd be better to have the public here so they can have, because their comments to WHKS, basically, they're taking them, but their design's going to be based off what they feel is best in the data, not public input. So
Right.
we need to have a session where the public tells us what they want, which, I've gotten a lot of that already, obviously, but
But we've already had 2, and we're going to have another one, and our meetings are always open.
I think your voting meeting, September, would be a meeting the
right.
public.
I'm
would
just
attend with
saying there
comment.
was 100 people in there, and those comments aren't going to do any good.
Well,
think we need to
I
be
don't know why they
careful
wouldn't
there. I
do
mean-
some good.
I've been at both meetings, and I just walk around and listen to people, so to say that it's not worth their time to come to a meeting, I think is very misleading, because they don't have to call me up, they don't have to stop me in the parking lot, I'm there and I hear what they have to say. Along that same lines, I would certainly encourage folks to keep an open mind on this, because as you've alluded to, we know what a 4-lane works like. We've never experienced a 3-lane. I think you had indicated that there's been a couple of communities in the last year or so that have transitioned to that.
Well, yeah, I think
Mentioned that in the
you had
meeting.
Clear Lake, and I think we had, they're not close to here, Mount Pleasant, Fairfield.
Could
You know,
we
there's
get
a lot of
those
places.
communities? I mean, that would be part of my due diligence, is to call those communities and say, what was the reaction before? What resistance did you have? What has your experience been since you've made the move? I think, again, I understand people's hesitancy, but by the same token, if you don't experience or haven't had experience with both, how do you make a valid judgment? So My key point is, I hope folks keep an open mind. I hope they're not over-influenced by being kicked out of town, those type of things.
That's just
This is
me.
a process that has
They're
to
not,
go through.
they're not getting kicked out. I didn't say I'm not kicking anyone
I'm
out.
talking about you influencing yourself and the conversation. The other question I have is,
How do I influence
since there
myself?
is going to be city infrastructure, those type of things, will this be a single contract letting that incorporates the city's responsibility work, so it all gets done by the same person?
Yes. Yep, there'll be, the way we do it is we'll do one contract or one set of plans. Inside there, we basically break it into divisions. It's 100% of what the DOT has to pay for, 100% of what the city has to pay for, and then there's usually a breakdown, and a lot of times it's in storm sewer cost. How much is the city's responsibility? How much is the DOT's? You know, depending on how much water goes into the system is how you prorate that. So that'll all be spread, you know, all be in
Sure,
one.
we had fewer moving parts, I guess, on the contract.
It'll be one prime contractor, one set of plans.
I was approached by one of the owners of the upper story apartments, and so they just kind of made the comment that it appears that we're going to do next year repeat kind of what they just did this year. I mean, they moved all the water over and paid all the money and closed down Bremer, but next year we're going to put the water main on the south side. He wasn't real excited about that, but just because he knew he had to pay for what they did this year, but.
Right, and some of that, it wasn't
Are we
every.
going to redo all those connections that were made this year, or are we going to leave those connections going across the street, or?
I mean, I think my recommendation would be to move them over to the side of the street that they're at. You know, and this is where it comes back to, you know, other things that, comments that are made by people. But one of the good comments was their water lines sort of tend to freeze because they're blocked on the south side. And so we're going to insulate, you know, all the water services. And that came out of out of a comment that we received. So we do use the comments and design as best we can.
No, I think we need that on the south side. It's just bad time. I mean,
Yeah, it was bad timing. You couldn't wait to do that project. We couldn't advance this one with the amount of work that's required to get it done. So it's bad timing on the two different projects. So
Any other questions on? All right. Thank you very much.
okay, thank you.
Again, for the public, right now, we're looking at August 22nd, kind of as our third public information meeting. And again, the same kind of 5 to 7 timeframe. Okay. Okay, the second item on our study session calendar is the Leisure Services Commission update. Tab, you're taking the lead on this, I see.
No, I'm going to introduce Brian Pins, current chair of the Leisure Services Commission. And I wanted to make sure you knew that Sharon Cashman of the Leisure Services Commission is here as well. So I'll take it away, Brian.
All right, thank you very much for having me here. Just going to give you a quick update on the things we've been kind of working on this past year in leisure services. So a couple of first points here is about some changes that has happened. We've had 2 retirements, and obviously congratulations to them, but it does leave a hole to fill in the meantime behind them leaving. So we were lucky this time we were able to seamlessly fill with 2 internal candidates who know it made that very easy and painless process there. We've also moved from new building, which you're aware of, and from an 80-year-old facility into a 50-year-old facility. So, you know, it's definitely an upgrade for us in that respect. Commission, we developed a 5-year plan, kind of really focused in on the key aspects that we would like to see, that we've heard from public comments as well, from people in the community, that we need to kind of address here, and kind of our wish list, if you will, there on things that we need to take a look at. Pool hours have been an ongoing discussion annually for us. We made a few different changes this year to that, based around the family swim time and lack of use over the past few years there. We've also accepted an extension of the trail behind High V on the Omni subdivision per the parkland dedication ordinance requirement. Let's see what else here. We discussed and developed a street tree replacement policy. Obviously, with all the ash trees that we've had to take down, we wanted to make sure that we were being consistent and had a good plan in place to replace some of that canopy that we were missing now. Obviously, you talk about, just with the last comments with drainage and different things on the streets. Part of that is having a good canopy to support that water from flooding our streets as quickly. So the canopy definitely helps that process. Recommended to continue the cable franchise fee. Also, we put some recommended language for the local option sales and service tax. That's up there here later on this evening. Had extensive discussions on possible improvements to Memorial Park as well as Kids Kingdom, with that facility getting a little bit older there, some parts of it unsafe. Obviously, we've had some different community groups help us out in that and improve some of those areas, but just kind of looking at long-term plans there over the next 3 to 5 years. Okay. Any questions, comments?
Go ahead, you go.
Yeah, Brian, on item 6, to go back to that, on the street tree replacement policy, do you have a policy, or are you working on this yet? And can you give us a really, really short version of how is that going to work?
We're about 95% there. In just a thumbnail, we have a certain quadrant in town that we're concentrating on taking trees out each year. The following year, after we take those trees out, we will concentrate on putting trees back in that quadrant, because we'll be moving on to another quadrant, taking them out. So it's kind of like the sidewalk system, where we move quadrants around town. We're going to do the same thing with tree replacement too.
So the city is replacing trees that were taken out, or do the homeowners pay for those? How does that work?
We have several programs. We're going to do the replacement trees through the Science Club tree sale program, and 50% of that money is going to come from Trees Forever. But we also have a tree replacement program in the fall, and a tree rebate program in the fall for property owners when they want to get a little bit bigger tree or a different tree that's being offered.
Your pool hours, I mean, I agree with, and I like what you're doing with the hours. One thing that I've heard from people is maybe opening sooner. There's days that it's 85, 90 degrees by 10 o'clock in the morning, or things like that, that parents could take their kids to the pool by 11 a.m. instead of waiting until the afternoon, those kind of things. So maybe the times shift earlier, and, I kind of agree with you. I used to, as a kid, always go to family time, but that's not really the thing. That now it's more in the morning, afternoon times instead of more at night. But be something to look at, maybe.
Yeah, great. Thank you. We'll definitely look into that. Appreciate it.
A couple of weeks ago, we had a couple of folks inquire about all-access type play areas, that type of thing. I'm assuming if we're looking at Kids Kingdom, rebuild, redo, we're going to blend that into it and those type of things.
Yeah, all-inclusive areas have been talked about in pretty much all of our new park infrastructure moving forward. It's something that we want to consider and do as best we can. Obviously, certain things do cost more, so we just need to make sure that it works for every citizen that we can. That comes not only with the equipment itself, but also the surfacing of it as well. So
it just seemed to me, with their passion and the passion that came around building Kids Kingdom the first time, that would be a great community project. And the other question I had is, I've had a couple of residents contact me about different ways to enhance, utilize the river, those type of things. Is there anything you're working on at this time, or is that just kind of something that's always out there and we don't know exactly what to do to enhance the river use?
We do have regular discussions on how we can. At this point, we haven't had anything in the last few meetings about that. guess it was last year, so 2015, we did add some different signage to help with kayakers and those people who are using it to come off in Coleman Park, not get too close to the dam, those types of things. But no, we definitely would be interested. So if you have those individuals, please send them our way, and we'd love to hear from them.
Kind of directed them your way. So
Yes, that'd be great.
they'll catch up with you sooner.
Awesome. Thank you.
To go off what Dan said, I've had a couple people this summer talk to me about Circle Park, and I actually went down there and looked at it, and what it looks like now compared to when I was a kid is completely different. So there's not even a trash can down there or picnic tables or anything. And I know we quit mowing quite a bit of it, but there's been some interest of people to at least have Circle Park kept up a little bit more, mowed a little bit more, at least have some picnic tables and a trash can down there. Things like that.
That's Ridgewood Park. And basically with the use that we have and with the consistent flooding that we've had, we've decided to make that into a no-mow. We have mowed walkways so people can go along the shoreline and fish, or just walk through the park. And honestly, the high grasses and stuff are pretty good wildflowers and grasses. Every time the water gets high, it introduces additional weed seeds, so we'd have to go in and take care of those every so often. But it's not too bad a stand of wildlife and wild grasses. And
Yeah,
stuff.
I'd agree with that. I guess they're just looking more for, I mean, there is a sand barge across the river that is where most of the boats and pontoons and people hang out. And so if that, when I was a kid, we always came across in Circle Parks where we got out and did everything. So it'd be nice to maybe have a couple picnic tables and at least a trash can. There's no trash cans down there. So I've just heard things like that. So.
Any other comments?
Thanks for all your work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, that concludes our study session calendar. Now, we do have some items added to the study session. I guess I misspoke when I called it a study session because we do have some work agenda items to cover tonight as well. First being the consent calendar, and there are a number of items here. Pay request from Tatro Electric, pay request from Peterson Contractors, pay request from WHKS and Company for the dry run, as well as the Bremer Avenue reconstruction, pay request from McClure Engineering for the airport, pay request from Feldman Concrete for the citywide pedestrian ramps, pay request from Kleesner Construction for the citywide asphalt patching, setting a public hearing to review the citywide sidewalk repairs, Class C liquor license for the Fainting Goat, Class B beer permit for Waverly Heritage Days, cigarette, tobacco permits for numerous venues in town.
Basically, any of them that's.
Okay. And then approving our May cash disbursements. Do I have a motion, or does anyone want to pull any of those out individually?
I'll move.
I'll second. Just, do we need to call out the time and date for the public hearing, just so folks know?
I'm setting the public hearing for July 18th at 7 for the sidewalk repairs. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on this? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Okay, the consent calendar is agreed to. We move into our regular business for the evening. The first one is approve a list of the fiscal year 2016 transfers. Kind of walk us through details on this?
The transfers between funds has to be approved by City Council. What you have in front of you is a list of all the transfers that were discussed at budget or at some time during the year. And it tells whether it was an original budget item or if it was an amended item. And then you have a detailed listing of if it was amended or the original budget item.
Just finishing up crossing the Ts and dotting the
Yes,
Is and
correct.
getting everything. We have a motion on this.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussions?
Again, just for clarification, this isn't in increases in taxes. This is just money moving between accounts for the accounting process.
Correct. If you look at the balances, they equal each other, debits, credits, so it's zero impact on the transfers.
I noticed the hotel motel fund had $20,000 less. Is that the total? Is the total for that fund always moved in the general fund, and then from there we disperse it out how we do it, or?
Yes.
I believe so.
And that amount is, we only transfer the exact, what we get in. And there is money that will be coming in June, and I believe we already have it because this was done before that. So we only transfer that amount. We're assuming it's 90,000, but we only transfer the actual amount.
And then from there we divvy it out to different.
Correct.
Okay, further discussion? Voice vote on this. All those in favor of the transfers, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay, that is approved. Second item on there is to discuss funding for the council meeting video production and community messages for after the May 7th, 2017 expiration of the franchise fees or the cable fee. Okay. James, you want to kind of lead the discussion on this? And
Sure. As we're aware, the franchise fee that we currently have is still in place with MediaCom, will expire May 7th, 2017. Obviously, it is a budget issue as well, but the reason for it being a little earlier, and again, Tab can elaborate if need be on this, is Waverly Utilities needs to be able to kind of set their funding levels, their needs based on this, and then Wartburg itself, the production contract, is expiring in the fall, so it kind of has to be determined if we'll be utilizing them to do production as well. And so that's what prompted the discussion a little before budget, so we get an idea of what's going to happen going forward, or how it will happen, or if it will happen, et cetera.
I guess I'll start off. My thought on this still kind of goes back to the when we voted not to extend it or to actually increase it. I think it's the video production is something that is necessary. I think these are public service that the whole community can use. It is available on the cable access channel because they give us a dedicated channel for that. But it's also available online. We do live streaming of it. It is available at the library and other as far as that for people to be able to have access. So it's not simply those that have cable that are making use of access to the public meetings. And I think that's a burden that should be distributed over the entire community and not just those that choose to have the cable as their source of that. And it's just, to me, that's a fairness issue and shouldn't be placed on one small segment just because they choose cable over a dish or over not having anything.
May I respond to that?
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep in mind that this is a user fee for right-of-way property, not airway. The people that choose cable and choose to watch it on TV, that is their choice. Mm-hmm. And they need to pay that user fee to make things in the right-of-way back the way they found it to begin with. It's nothing to do with internet or airways or anything.
And the people that watch on
It's not an access fee, it's a user fee.
It's a user fee, but people that watch it on the internet are using but not paying anything.
They're using the same exact coax cable that MediaCom put in, so, yeah.
They're accessing it, they're not using the right-of-way.
Yes, they are. If they have MediaCom internet, the same coax feeds your house for both, so it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, franchise fees are only for cable TV.
Right, but the right-of-way, the same cable feeds your house whether you're using cable or just have internet. You have one cable that goes into your house.
So to be fair, we
Iowa
should
code
probably
doesn't
quit
allow us to
streaming
do- yeah.
so that only cable people get the council meetings.
I mean, I can understand the conversation around all users support this. But again, I keep coming back to the delivery of televised city events is the byproduct of what we choose to do with the money. It's not why we're necessarily charging that access fee. It's to address the right-of-way issues. It's to address the fact that we need some way to keep our right-of-ways in good, healthy condition, control what goes into them, and those types of things. So I get a little confused, a little concerned when we turn the conversation on the way we use the fees. To me, it's a question, is the fee legitimate for what it was set up for? And that's to help communities support their right-of-ways. And when I come back to that basic question, I always come back to yes. Again, the output of how we use that is to produce the meetings, to put it on YouTube, to put it out in the public domain. If some folks are getting that for free, to me, everybody's getting it for free, because the user fee that we're charging is not to produce the meeting.
What do we charge user fee percentage-wise for electrical to be run into a house using the right-of-way?
It's on your bill.
But what percentage is it?
I don't know.
What percentage do we charge as a user fee for the water, sewer lines that we run?
There's a minimum fee that includes your
Is the
tap into
percentage
the
that goes
system.
into our general fund that we use? I mean, what, all these things use so-called right-of-way. What do we use, what do we charge the Waverly Power to use the right-of-way, percentage-wise?
They make large transfers from the Waverly Utilities to the city.
They choose to do that, but that's not
No,
what,
it's in the code.
Well, I mean, they do. They actually make large transfers.
what
from
is the
utilities.
percentage that they charge us, each user?
I don't know.
The right-of-way, so we can make.
I think the code states it's on kilowatt hour.
But even so, I mean, again, if we want to look at it from Dan's perspective of we're charging to maintain the right-of-way, again, we're only charging a small portion of the people to maintain all of the right-of-way. I don't have cable, but the right-of-way at my property is being maintained through this fee apparently.
And if your neighbor
But
gets cable, they
I'm
run
not
through
paying
your
it, my
yard.
neighbors are paying it.
But doesn't Mediacom, when they come out and bury a cable or whatever, they return it to normal? The city doesn't have to go out and do that.
No, yeah, they don't, yeah. But also, I mean, I agree with Tim that this should be spread across. This is a basic fundamental service a city should provide to its citizens. So we should provide it no matter where we get the money from. But like you brought up with using lost funds, you want to buy police cars out of the lost fund because you say that most citizens that use police cars are from around here, not from Waverly, they're from different areas, so you want the sales tax to help offset all of those things, but yet you want just the cable company, people who get cable, to pay for watching meetings. So I'm trying to be consistent in saying, let's have the whole town pay for it because the whole town uses it, and it's just a basic service we should provide regardless of who pays for it. We shouldn't punish one segment of the population to pay for a service that we should provide no matter what, because this is what we should do. We should provide open public meetings on television all the time.
Yeah, Wes, that's a reasonable argument. The other argument is the nonprofits in town also have cable TV, and they're paying for this, but they don't pay any like property taxes or anything like that. So this is one of the ways that they can.
All of them have cable. Some have dish too. I mean,
A lot of them have cable.
I don't know. It depends though, but.
But what happens if those then all move away from cable? I mean, if we're relying on this franchise fee by the cable purchasers, and if over time people stop doing cable, which they've done over the years because dish wasn't an option for years, or
Internet television.
or internet television,
Probably
or all
will
of
all
that.
change over in time.
So then we don't have the franchise fee anymore because nobody's paying it. Then what do we do? At some point, we're going to have it's either going to be diminished, and we're going to have to deal with that, or so. To me, I think it should just be something that we put into our budget. We deal with it. I might get kicked for saying if it raises a little bit of taxes, it raises a little bit of taxes. But I think, it is a service we are providing, or the citizens want, and I think the citizens
And it's $20,000.
actually would support paying for it.
$20,000.
I would also remind council that the Cable Commission unanimously voted to approve the Actually, just the stabilization of the 3%.
I understand that, and we've overridden commissions before. Economic development has voted for projects that we haven't voted for.
Planning and zoning votes for stuff.
I think we need to interrupt. We're getting way off task here. The goal of this conversation is to discuss the funding going forward, not whether or not we're going to have a franchise fee. It's been voted on. It's passed. We're not going to rehash this out again tonight, I hope. The discussion is how to fund it, if we're going to fund it, and where to fund it from, and what we're going to fund. I mean, that's where we're at with this. It's not should we not. We've done that. I would request that we please move on.
Down the franchise fee.
Correct. And so it's going to go away in May, and the items that were funded by that, we need to figure out if we're going to continue to do it or not, and how. And that's a discussion tonight, if we would, please.
I think, obviously, we should fund and have our meetings on television. It's a basic primal service we should provide.
And I'm all for continuing the relationship with Wartburg in terms of contracting it and doing it through that, as I think that's been a good relationship. I think they do a good job with us. For us, it's just, in fact, as I've said, I would love to be able to invest in getting some more mobile cameras to allow us to move into a bigger space if we have a larger crowd for a meeting and do some of that.
But I think what we're faced with is if we don't have the franchise fee, we're actually talking about having fewer cameras, not adding more cameras, and we're, talking, I mean, I think that's what we need to, and are we going to suggest there be a tax to make up the budgetary difference? What are we going to?
You just said, though, there is no franchise fee. We voted that down already.
Right. So
I would agree with James as far as,
the discussion is what are we going to do?
Continue with doing this for $20,000 a year, yes or no?
This should be a regular budget item.
That's all it is, yes or no?
Just remember it's 50,000 because half of it goes to the general fund. So we're going to be reducing the general fund by $25,000 of revenue and the $25,000 that goes to the cable.
That already got voted down a month ago.
Right, but there's 25,000 we got to make up in economic development, and 25,000 we have to make up on running the cable.
I guess that's maybe where I'd like to go with the conversation. It was made, several statements were made the last time we talked about this, that it was going to be easy to find 50 to 80,000 in our current budget. I'd like to know where that is, and if I understand the information we're provided, if we don't stop doing something else, just to make up that 50 to 80,000, we're talking about adding 13 cents per thousand to the tax bill.
I think that's what it was calculated out, was 13 cents.
That's what I
Or we
heard.
could cut something. Just a month ago, I said the same thing, and you said it's irresponsible to tell people we would raise taxes if we would cut something, that we would find something to cut instead of raise taxes.
And all I'm asking is, 2 or 3 people said it would be easy. Where are you going to take
said
it
that.
from? No,
You
I
did.
didn't.
You said it'd be irresponsible to tell citizens we would raise taxes if we took away
Okay.
Right.
the lost fee. So you said we would find ways to do it.
Some public input. Pete?
I'm asking you where you would find this.
Well, you didn't.
I just find it
Go ahead.
interesting that the duties of the city council are to be fiscal authorities for the city of Waverly. That includes where the money that comes in and where it goes out. By your elimination of a franchise fee, you reduce the amount of income. Basically, instead of expanding it and giving it to the entire city, it's all property taxpayers. They're the ones that are going to pay for everything now. Just the same thing where the discussion with the sewer rates and the water rates, which are services, when you were talking about the fact that, we don't need to do that, it should be just done out of the regular budget. The property taxpayers are supposed to pay for everything that even those that don't pay property taxes pay. They utilize a lot of, all these services. They don't have to pay for any upkeep of any sewer lines. They don't have to pay for any upkeep, they just pay for their water rates.
They do.
But they don't, but any extra money has to come from property taxes. Just the same thing with production. I think these are a very important service to provide to the citizens of Waverly, the broadcast that we do from these chambers, the discussions that are held in these chambers. The local option or sales tax that we used to have, or on the
Currently have.
franchise fee.
Franchise fee.
That used to pay, until it's gone here now, has been subsidizing, paying for a service that's been provided to the entire community. Now we're going to do it, just the property taxpayers are going to provide that service.
For the entire community.
Yeah. Why should I have to pay more in property taxes when I can get assistance by a larger group of, not necessarily a larger, as you've pointed out. It's a matter of people aren't watching it on, don't have cable, they've got internet connections or whatever. Guess what? You've still got to provide the service. We've still got to have cameras here. We've still got to have people to operate them. You've still got to have people to do the production
100%.
of the broadcast.
That's why we're voting yes for this tonight, to pay for it.
So in other words, we're going to eliminate doing the broadcast.
No, we're voting to continue with the broadcast and pay for it for the entire town.
And the
every
property
single
taxpayers
citizen,
alone will be paying for it. Thank you.
instead of a very small portion of the town that only 40% that has cable or whatever it is. If every single citizen benefits from this, we are going to do it.
Okay, we're going to do it, but why can't I have a little extra help paying that bill?
Well, you know what would be great? The people who actually produce this and their students who learn from this, maybe that college would want to donate some money so that their students that do this for a
You
living
don't think
could
that they're
benefit.
putting anything into it?
They're not putting any money into this.
What's it going to cost for the city of Waverly
pay
to
zero
hire
property
a
taxes,
production
right?
company to come in, to hire 2 or 3 staff
Yep.
to come in and produce and put this online?
And their
That
students.
service is being provided by the
students do that.
Wartburg. Now,
Their students.
how much is that going to cost? Tell me.
Their students do it now, and then they get paid a little bit extra if the meetings run long. But it's
They
a
get
learning.
paid-
It's,
They get
it's
paid
through
a
a
very
class.
minimal
It's through a
for
class
what
they
it
take.
costs to be able to do productions.
You're not arguing the same thing with me.
Okay.
Wartburg does it for free because their students take a class and present and do it. And
I
we
think-
allow them to do that, and they get a really good experience out of that for free.
And we pay the students and we pay the
We
production
don't pay the
engineer.
students unless it goes over 2.5 hours or something.
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe the students are also paid through the campus employment program.
That would, I don't know, we don't, Waverly taxpayers don't pay anything to Wartburg.
No, you said they don't, you just say it doesn't,
Waverly does not pay
I
them.
understand what Pete's saying too. There's a benefit by virtue of cost comparison if we wanted to do the same thing. And if the college weren't here with their students, but it's also not, I don't think, I'd have to double check, but I don't think it's accurate what you're saying is that Wartburg doesn't pay any money. I believe the students are in the campus employment program.
Wartburg does not give the city of Waverly any money to put this on television.
I guess it depends how you look at it. The students are here doing it.
Does Wartburg pay, students pay to go to Wartburg, right? There's a tuition, $30,000, $40,000 a year. I guess I'm trying to, how is having students do it without Waverly paying them, having Wartburg pay the city of Waverly?
I just want to clarify that the Wartburg students do not get paid when they're doing it for a class, which is probably about half the time. They do get paid for when it's during breaks or during the summer. The folks back there right now are being paid. Okay. We also pay the people who do the community message board all the time.
That's part of that 20,000 we put on this. And I mean, I liken it to, the whole city pays for the golf course. The users of the golf course pay an extra fee to be there, but the whole city pays into the golf course.
Swimming pool,
Swimming
library.
pool is another one. Library is another one.
Library
So
is actually free for everybody.
Yeah. So this is being used not just here in town, and I'm not so sure how many of the nonprofits are there watching the city council meetings. I know there are a large number of property tax owners that watch the city council meetings. That's, I guess, where it comes from.
I doubt there's many Wartburg students watching right now. Except for the ones taping us.
There are a few. No, there are a few. Probably not right now, but they're during.
That's our
during
largest
school.
nonprofit, yeah, so.
So back to how will we make this work in the budget? Does anybody have any ideas about that?
That's why we have James, man.
We can
I
look at-
present it to you to decide what you're going to do with it. But that's the key question tonight. It won't be an actual vote per se. We're wanting to get some consensus to move forward, whether we contract with Wartburg again to continue the service, and then to also allow for Waverly Utilities to make the adjustments they're going to need to make. So I know it's just a discussion item, correct? So we're not voting per se as a council tonight, but we just need to know, is there consensus enough to move this forward to either get a formal vote or to take it into budget knowing we are going to provide this going forward?
I think we need to continue providing it, and we should find a way to fund it, whether it means cutting some things, and those are decisions we have to make come fall and then spring at budget time. Or we look at adding a little bit to make up the ground difference.
I would just be a little bit curious. I'm not afraid of doing things that nobody has ever done before, but one of the bits of information that was shared when some of us asked about this at one of our meetings was that nobody knew of any other city where this had happened. And, maybe we'll be on the bleeding edge or on the leading edge. But I'm just curious why, if anybody has any ideas about, why other cities have not handled this in the same way.
Maybe those cities don't have a college that provides free service to produce it.
Oh, there are plenty. There are 25 colleges, 3 Regents universities, and 15 community colleges across the state. We have plenty.
But there's
of other towns.
How many towns in Iowa are there?
Well, I know you can eliminate one Regent College because I know UNI does not provide it for Cedar Falls. They're done. They have their own cable commission and they provide it. It's part of Stack's hired city staff there.
Exactly, which
But
would
they-
cost what? Probably more than $20,000.
It does, and that's why I'm saying I like the agreement we've had with Wartburg and would move to continue it. In fact, I would love to try to actually expand a little bit if possible, but that involves what they're available for doing as well. So again,
I know the decision here is do we move forward with the production, but if I just understood part of the conversation here, if we would bring all of that in-house and be paying city staff to it, we'd be comfortable with a user fee to cover it, is what I just heard. Because that's what other communities are doing. They've got it in-house.
Who said that?
I'm not quite sure how Cedar Falls funds it. I think they do a franchise, but I don't know exactly. I know they've got Cedar Falls Utilities,
What is it?
which is
5%.
Is it 5% for them?
Franchise fee.
So
And does CFU pay it also? Because I know they've got a huge percentage.
CFU pays it also, and it pays an additional amount. It actually pays an additional amount that Mediacom does not pay.
Yeah, because CFU is a huge provider within the community. Maybe that's something to talk to Waverly Utilities about, that this 50,000 could come, as far as there, if they were able to come up with a fairly large chunk to help offset the W for a while, so.
Yeah, they did. And like you said, CFU actually provides special channels just for UNI and Cedar Falls, like high school and those kind of things that Mediacom does not. So they choose to do that. That's their local.
So in total, though, we're talking about, coming back to the point of the discussion, we really are talking about finding about $50,000 or more in the budget, correct? Okay.
That's correct.
That's per year, or is that just a one-time?
Per year.
What's the $5,000 for web page hosting, and why is it included in our hosting live meetings discussion? We put them on YouTube, which is free. But what's the $5,000 web page hosting?
That's, we pay that to our web page host, so that our web page can support, we'll get support, yeah.
We don't stream through our web page anymore. We
Right.
stream on YouTube.
I know, but that's in this budget,
That's where folks go to get the agendas and the supporting materials.
right?
Okay,
Part
but
of
I'm not.
delivering this meeting.
Well, no, the webpage is our city, that's our city webpage, is
Right.
what we're talking about. So I guess, I don't know why that's included with the broadcasting and stuff like that. This is our city webpage that are,
It was the place where you looked at the videos before. I don't know if we have adjusted it since then.
yeah, you can't get to them from there anymore. It's straight up.
Right, I know that.
So, I mean, that shouldn't even be in this section to me, because the webpage is its own separate entity has nothing to do with cable, or you don't watch a webpage on television. It's the city webpage that you go to see everything. Look up your utility bills, all that kind of stuff.
But are you, I mean, is
I get
it,
confused why it's there.
yeah, is it included perhaps because you're saying that we do have to host a webpage and some of the funding that's coming in from the franchise fee is being used for that?
That's been the history. And again, up to like last year or 2 years ago, that's where you went to get the online.
Yeah, that I understand, but in terms of if that's not happening anymore, and Wes's question about why is this still part of the expense, I mean, that are tallied here in detail, is it because part of the franchise fee is being used to pay for that? Because we'll have to
Correct.
have the hosting regardless of whether we stream through it or not.
Correct.
How long is that web hosting contract too? Because I know we just did it with Spinutech, but
That's annual web hosting right there.
I'd like to look at that again at some point with different people I know, but topics are different.
I mean, I guess I'm at a point where I want to keep all this stuff for our citizens too, but, $50,000 or $80,000, whatever it ends up being, without us having really any idea where we're going to get that from, I'd be reluctant to say right now, yeah, let's go ahead and, commit to something that we don't know how we're going to pay for it.
First of all, just so everyone knows what we're talking about, the actual production of the cable television is $20,000 minus $5,000. So it's only $15,000 if you take the webpage out. So that's the money that it costs to produce the meetings live, and have them on YouTube is $15,000. $50,000 is the total that we would have to replace in the general fund. So
Right.
don't be saying 80,000 or things like that. But
Well, where are we going to get that was going to the general fund?
where are we going to get the money to redo all of Bremer Avenue and put in parking lanes and angled parking and water
Well,
fountains and garbage cans?
but I'm asking you a question, which I didn't expect to get another question in response to. I mean, I'm just asking
Lots
a
of
question.
places to cut to make $50,000.
Like,
Give me a week. I'll come back with the list for you.
okay, then I would wait until then to say I'm in favor of moving forward with it.
So to get $50,000 in revenue on a 3%,
Yes.
that means there's $1.6 million of cable business?
Whatever the math says. I mean, that's the amount that we
1.66
got.
million? And if everybody in town, even if every cable customer is paying $200, which they're not, that's 8,333 subscribers in the city of Waverly?
Not right.
The numbers don't work, I guess, to me.
I don't remember what the numbers were.
I don't know what the formula is.
There's
But
only,
that means-
there's only 2,000 some households in Waverly, so.
But you have dorms and apartments and all, hospital and all those too.
I guess,
Yeah, there's-
Warburg pays like a big chunk fee for
Yeah, there's 4,000 households,
4,000.
and it is every month for 12 months. I don't know if,
Okay, for month-wise, but, yeah, okay, I'm not figuring per month.
But only
That would
maybe
make
half
sense.
the town.
That would make more
has
sense.
cable.
I'm figuring per month, yeah.
20, 40 hours a month,
Sure.
300 a year is pretty reasonable, and then that by how many people, that's where it kind of comes
Yeah,
out.
that's a good point, but that still seems high.
Considering that we've got more items to cover here yet tonight, I guess I'd make a motion to table this until we have some idea on where we're going to
And actually, this was.
This is just a discussion, so we don't need a.
And I would suggest we stop the discussion and move on.
We can bring it up
Yeah,
again.
I mean, I feel badly that we're not giving you any guidance, I don't feel, because I don't think we're on the same page on this, but
I think everyone agreed we have to provide the service.
I don't agree.
You would be okay not having our meetings live?
I
on
want to
television?
know what we're going to lose first. No, I would prefer,
Okay.
I want to know first what we're not going to have as a result of doing that. I'm not, do I generally think we should provide the service? Yes. And we've
I
had
would
a
hope
way,
you would 100%
and we've had a
think
way
that.
of doing it, and we're talking, and we've acted to do away with that. So now I want to know, before I say yes, I'm absolutely in favor of this, I want to know first how we're going to pay for it.
You're not sure if you really want to provide television to people?
No, I'm sure I want to.
Okay, 100%.
Yeah, but I want to see, I mean, I'm
Good.
I'm
We're done
fiscally
then.
responsible.
We're done.
You know,
We're done.
There's different ways to get to fiscal responsibility based on what.
right. So I'm just asking for some ideas from those of you who, I,
So we can continue this discussion at another meeting. I'll bring that up. Okay, item number 3 is Resolution 1650, approving the City of Waverly's Federal Aviation Administration application for federal assistance, SF 424, for the Waverly Municipal Airport's runway safety zone. A little discussion first, or just kind of background on it?
Try and get reimbursed for about $165,000 for improvements that have been made to the airport. It's the simplest way I could put it.
And this was for some of the property purchase, or is this both property and?
Yeah, it's for some of the acquisition to get that 90% back is what the application was for.
Okay. Discussion. Do I hear a motion?
Would move Resolution 1650 approving the City of Waverly's Federal Aviation Administration application for federal assistance, FS-424, for the Waverly Municipal Airport Runway Safety Zone.
second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion on the council, from the council.
This leaves 2 properties then, still, or 3 properties, 2 owners?
It's a combination of things, because it's the cost of actually purchasing the easement.
No, I'm just asking
the
who's
property.
left. This leaves 3 properties, but 2 owners.
2 owners and 3 parcels.
That's correct.
Okay, no further discussion then. We'll move to a roll call vote on this.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Lampy.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Gade.
Yes.
Scher.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes. By a vote of 6-0 with 1 absent, Resolution 1650 passes. Item number 4 is Resolution 16-51, approving the bid from Fisher Brothers of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, to renovate the outdoor swimming pool water slides. Discussion or Tab, want to fill the public in on what we're doing or why we're needing to do it?
It was done about 8 years ago, and the pool project was actually done about 16 years ago when we got the slides. So it's about every 8 years. This will basically put a new coat of clear coat on them, bring out the color again, make them look good, make them look slick, and even them up because they go out of adjustment with freeze thaw. This is the same organization that did it the last time. We're pretty good with them, and it's within budget.
What happens if you don't delaminate?
There's a couple areas you can tell right now that all the glaze is off, and it gets down to the fiberglass because they are fiberglass slides. So this preserves the integrity of them, basically. The other big thing is we are not able to get replacement step material anymore, so they will be putting brand new step material in that will last longer, and we won't have any problem with cracked steps anymore.
Other questions from council?
We could turn the slides off forever, and people will not be happy with us.
I was just wondering what the negative effects of delamination are, if it's, because it's not cheap.
fiberglass slivers.
Yeah.
So what you're telling us is if we don't do this, you may have to leave town. Is that it?
No, you're going to come with a thing of wax paper and slide down the slides.
The whole city of Waverly is paying for this, right?
It's tax dollars,
There you go. Yep. Amazing how that works.
whether you slide down them or not.
Yep. I'll move Resolution 1651 approving the bid of $30,500 of Fisher Bros of E. Claire, Wisconsin to renovate the outdoor swimming pool water slides.
Second.
Just to clarify, user fees are also supporting the pool, so user fees are also paying for this slide.
Correct.
Very small amount, but that's correct. There is no user fees at the library, though.
All right, on to
Yeah.
this. Any further
Or the fire station,
yes,
right?
Kids, let's move on.
on this discussion on item,
We can go on
item
all night
4?
if they're going to keep doing that.
I'd rather go home eventually.
I know.
Any further discussion on item 16, or item 4? Roll call vote then, please.
Angus,
Yes.
Scher,
Yes.
Gade,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Lampe,
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
By a vote of 6-0 with one absent, item 1650, resolution 1651 has been approved. Item 5 is resolution, I'm getting tongue-tied here. Is this, I wasn't quite prepared for this. Okay. Item 5 is resolution 16-52 approving parcel F and parcel G minor subdivision plat for commercial property on the east side of and in the 500 block of Industrial Street Northwest. Again, just a little background on what this is.
Yeah, Bill kind of run through the zoning issue on it.
This was a parcel that was purchased for the construction of the Palestrini Eye Clinic. And they purchased the whole thing thinking they would create one structure and then have two different businesses in it. And now they want to go back to having two different lots and having two different structures. And that's what it was before. The council was asked before to combine the two parcels into one, and now we're being asked just to take it back to two parcels. So it's exactly the same boundaries that the other two parcels were, so that they can do two separate buildings, two separate owners. And it works, it works either way, so we don't really have any opinion that this is a good thing to do. We think it's a good thing to do, if they want to do it.
What's the parking variance commentary? I didn't quite understand that. Something about,
What they'll do is, when they go back to two parcels, there'll be parking requirements, and they'll still be addressing the parking requirements as separate buildings. So I'm not sure what he meant by that, but what I understood is that we're just going back to what it was before. And they decided to do two separate lots instead of, I think what they thought they could do is have a zero lot line commercial building and have two owners. And that isn't permitted under our zoning code. And so what they're going back to is having two separate buildings and two separate owners.
I assume there's a certain number of spaces needed per business, and maybe the combined business would have been a different number. So they'll make sure and comply separately
Right,
with
right.
that
I see.
parking
That's
requirement.
right, I'm sorry.
I think
So is it the case, Bill, that Palestrini has a structure and they want to free a lot up so that there can be a second structure? Am I understanding that
Yes,
correctly?
there's enough room to do another structure, and there was always anticipated to be a structure adjacent to it. They were going to connect those and have a lot line down the middle of the building. Now what they'll do is just separate buildings like they would have had they done it with two separate lots the first time.
So if we approve this, we'll be seeing another structure go up, likely.
They had always intended to do, to increase the size of the structure. So there'll be a new structure that would be anticipated in this area, yes.
Right, yeah.
I did watch, planning and zoning went through this, really improved it all fine, so I watched that meeting live, so.
I might have myself turned around in town, but if I understand it, this is a request for northwest 500 block of Industrial Street in Palestrini,
We're in the wrong one. I'm sorry.
southwest
Okay.
along 10th Avenue.
There's two things, and I jumped to the second one, I'm sorry. Let's go back to, this is the two guys building and up in the industrial park. And those were combined, and now we're separating the two buildings. They've removed the walkway between the two buildings, and they've now created 2 lots and 2 buildings that are separated. So those are being separated and sold separately. That's this one, I'm sorry. What I was talking about is the next item, or a different item.
So take all that, tuck it away, and then,
I'll try not to do
sorry
that.
about that. We usually don't stack them 1 to 1 like this where they're similar.
Okay, so your clarification holds, but it's just for a different item.
Yeah, well, it's sort of the same thing, but they actually have a structure that was actually combined with a
Yeah.
walkway, and they've
I
removed
get
the
it.
walkway, and now they have the lot line down the middle, and they have 2 separate structures and 2 separate owners.
Got it,
I'm
yeah.
sorry to come back to the parking thing then again too, but it says, what I found finally, what I had just made myself a note, now I found it in the thing. It says parking considerations would require Board of Adjustment variance for each respective building in accordance with the off-street parking requirements for any resulting businesses in the properties other than personal storage. So they must not even originally have been meeting parking.
I believe that's what they were
Require-
saying. They may have not.
They were grandfathered in.
Yeah.
They're grandfathered in because they've been there forever.
I believe that's the case, that they allowed the usage at some point, and since they separated out and have 2 different structures and 2 different properties now, they don't get the same consideration. They'd have to come back and ask for it if they had a retail business here. Right. But since they're not doing it as a retail business, the storage business would be, they would be complying with that, with the zoning ordinance on that.
Okay, do we have a motion on this?
I will move approval of Resolution 1652, approving Parcel F and Parcel G minor subdivision plat for commercial property on the east side and in the 500 block of Industrial Street Northwest.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion, clarification? Roll call vote.
Angus.
Yes.
Cade.
Yes.
Lampy.
Yes.
Scherer.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
A vote of 6-0 with 1 absent. Resolution 1652 passes. Item number 6 is the first reading of ordinance 1014, ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of Waverly, Iowa, providing for rezoning of property from single-family residential district R1 and commercial district C2 to commercial district C2A, and amending the city future land use plan from government and mixed use to commercial for 2 properties totaling 2.49 acres located on the southeast corner of 4th Street Southwest and Cedar River Parkway in the 300 block of the Cedar River Parkway, and setting a public hearing.
Need to tuck that away for a bit longer. This is a different one altogether.
It's going to come up another meeting, the other explanation.
We had a bunch come in at once, and
Okay.
just, yeah, this is not that one. So if you would, Bill,
Okay.
on this one.
All right, this is the property north of McDonald's. That we have a development agreement with the developer to sell that parcel that the city owns. In order to do so and to make, to sell the property, or at least to make development decisions about the property with prospective businesses that would be in that place, they want to clear up the zoning to allow it to be a commercial 2A. The property that was already there, that's owned by the developer, is a commercial C2, and the property that was owned by the city is, I believe, a residential property, because when the city bought it, there was a house there that was removed. So what we're doing is we're clearing this up in anticipation of the developer then being able to develop the property consistently on a C2A. Now, the reason it's being changed to C2A is because C2 has 50-foot setbacks, and this property is on a corner with already large right-of-way on both. 4th Street has an enhanced right-of-way, and the Parkway was built with an enhanced right-of-way. It's a odd-shaped, a different-shaped lot, and it really lends itself to allowing for construction a little bit closer to the right-of-way, so that they can have some flexibility to either put the building out front instead of the parking lot out front for this particular lot. I think it gives the developer more flexibility with the kind of businesses they are trying to agree to develop in this location, and I believe it could result in a better appearing location for that reason, putting the building and the landscaping towards the street side instead of having it be a parking lot that faces the 4th Street and the Parkway. So the 2A has still the same parking requirements as C2, so it won't change the number of parking places that are required for any development that would occur.
Just gives them more room to have more parking around it, is what I understood.
It actually
Less
can move the
setbacks, so
building.
you can-
Yeah, we can move the buildings closer to the right-of-way as opposed to having the 50-foot setback for the building part. It's a little more flexibility. I think there's someone here to maybe speak to it.
Hi there, good evening. Steve Trosky with CGA Engineers in Marshalltown, and we are the civil engineers for the ownership group on this project. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have about it.
Did I get it
Thanks.
right?
Perfect.
Okay.
Could you tell us what's anticipated? What does the developer want to do?
Well, commercial and office space at this point. The type of specific use has not been determined yet, and the final site layout obviously has not been determined yet. But one of the reasons that we did seek the C2A district was, as he alluded to, it is an odd-shaped lot, and so because we don't know what's going to happen yet, it gives us a little bit more flexibility as we talk with potential tenants to make the site more attractive for them.
When I watched the planning and zoning meeting, the one thing the most questions, I guess, did you present that night? I can't.
I
it's
did,
hard,
yes.
Yeah, it's hard to tell from TV, so yeah, I thought it was you. A couple questions you got were on access to the lot. So you had said that for sure, as soon as the median on Cedar River Parkway ends, you will have a full, like 4-way where you can go left, right, and then probably a frontage road that comes back to this lot.
Correct.
But then there was also talk that you hadn't ruled out yet a right-in only and a right-out only into that lot. That was something that was also brought up.
That would be at the discretion of the city's engineering department. We would not be opposed to that. Now, something else that came up was an entrance and an exit from the McDonald's. Not McDonald's, but there's a driveway right there. A planning commissioner asked if we would be open to having a secondary entrance there, and we certainly would.
That's great, because I mean that's when we sold this property to your people that you're working for, we asked our city and they said that there would be no access to this lot, that they would not allow a right hand in only, and that Miller's and McDonald's didn't have any interest and no one would want access into that. So if we would then turn around and allow you guys, after we were just told to sell it for a smaller price because it was landlocked, to have that kind of access, I think it would be a little awkward and disingenuous to taxpayers and stuff. So I agree with your first design to, have a 4-way when the median ends, and obviously you have some kind of frontage road to get it back in there, but I would hope we wouldn't allow as a city, since we were told as a council we couldn't do that, have access straight into there, that wouldn't be allowed here either. So
I agree with Wes. I mean, that was source of a tremendous amount of discussion during that decision. And, any access off of 4th, I wouldn't think would be allowed.
And the owner is perfectly okay with just having that single entrance all the way on the east side of the lot. He is aware of that, and that is acceptable to him.
I think that's fine. It's just from what we were told, and then I heard you bring that up as a option, and that night at Planning and Zoning, and it didn't jive at all with what we were told. So
To be clear, I think the access off of Cedar River Parkway to the property that we sold them, there was not enough room to get a entrance or exit in on that particular parcel. The parcel that the developer already owned further east on Cedar River Parkway, they could have put a right turn, and that was told to us. They could have put one there, but there wouldn't have been room for.
we were told there would be no
building.
direct access to this lot, is what we were told.
To
front lot.
that front lot. Remember, there's two parcels here
The
we're
lot we
talking about
sold.
we're combining.
The lot we sold.
The lot we sold, there would not have been.
Right.
Combined with the other, there is, because they could have gone
Right,
off of.
but as long as there's not into the lot we sold,
Yeah.
everything's good. Otherwise,
And I would assume once the lots are combined, that there still would not be access in that first portion, just because it's too close to the intersection there.
that's what I would assume. Because, yeah, that was, they brought up, Planning and Zoning brought up if there's any DOT restrictions, and Ben said, no, there wasn't. You know, it's the city of Waverly Road, you can do whatever you want, so it is up to the city of Waverly, but based on how it was sold, that was my only hesitancy there on that. So, we can't be told one thing and then let them do another later, so. But it sounds like that's not gonna happen, from what I'm seeing nodding heads, so hopefully that's true.
Part of what you said is true, and part of it, we're not going to let it be closer to the intersection than the DOT allows with their design standards. And the DOT does have standards about what they allow off a state highway for a right turn only. And it wouldn't be in that first 150 feet, which comprises the lot we own, the city owns.
Well, that wasn't explained to planning and zoning that way then, because it was, planning and zoning was told it was whatever the city decided to let, because since it was city-owned roads, so, but.
I wasn't at the city and the
I just
planning and zoning.
watched it, so, but.
Okay, do we have a motion on this?
I don't really want to read that whole paragraph.
Nobody
Oh,
wants
this
to
isn't
read
even
the-
the paragraph, is it?
Yeah, we have to read the whole thing.
I'll move the first reading of ordinance 1014, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of Waverly, Iowa, providing for rezoning of property from single-family residential R1 and commercial district C2 to commercial district C2A, and amending the city's future use plan from government and mixed use to commercial for two properties totaling 2.49 acres located on the southeast corner of 4th Street Southwest in Cedar River Parkway in the 300 block of Cedar River Parkway, and setting July 11th, 2016 at 7 o'clock in the council chambers of City Hall at the date, time, and place for a public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. This is just first reading, so reminder to the public, this will go through 3 readings. The following, second reading will be following the public hearing, and then we'll have a third readings too at that point. No further discussion. Let's go ahead and have a roll call vote.
Sorry, I was moving on. Scherer.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Kingus.
Yes.
Gade.
Yes.
Lampy.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
A vote of 6-0 with 1 absent. We moved first reading ordinance 1014. Item 7 is resolution 1653, authorizing purchase of a permanent drainage easements for the 5th Avenue Northeast Box Culvert Project. Further, Mike have this, or does James? This is one.
Yeah, we're just getting the easements for the Fifth Avenue Culvert project. $2,780 is what the cost is to get a hold of them. And I think these are all the ones we're going to need. Is that correct, Mike? We should do it. So we can proceed with replacement.
Get and replace that culvert there that's partially collapsed on the old wood culvert. Any further discussion from council? Clarification on that?
Have we looked, I'm not really sold on doing this. I mean, it's too, but the whole, yeah. Have we looked any more into insurance coverage of this? I mean, because since
For
it was.
what? Insurance for what?
Because wasn't it our truck that broke the bridge?
It was our truck that fell, it was our end loader that fell through a crappy wood box culvert.
Yeah, but shouldn't they have known not to be trying to pull something out of the ground while sitting on a wooden, I mean, I don't know.
So are we going to sue ourselves for negligence? I mean, that's what you're talking, I mean, that's the only liability there'd be if somebody was negligent.
I'm just glad it was the front end loader, not a school bus or a tractor.
But the
that
way
did it.
you explained it is they literally parked there and were putting pressure. I mean, it
No,
wasn't, they weren't just
They just
driving
pulled
across
up to it and it broke through. They were intending to do some repair work with the signs, but it was just the act of moving over on that side of the road that caused it to fail.
That's because it's been extended off with the wood on the one side wider than what it originally was. I'm just recapping for the audience.
We wouldn't be able to insure a claim against ourselves for doing that. And
And we-
even a lot of
yeah,
times
that
we
makes
don't have insurance on roads and bridges of that nature that will
We
allow that kind of
decided to
recuperate.
lump this in and do it with the dry run project. Even, I mean, it's costs what, another $500,000 or something like that.
This is what, 175?
The construction work is $152,000, $153,000, and
75 total, I thought.
Total, right.
And everything. And yeah, it'll be part of the Dry Run Creek process. So.
So we'll get 60% of the money back for it?
No.
No, okay. So it's not really part of it, it's separate.
It's part of what
It
we
was
bonded.
changed ordered into the project because of the value in being able to do that. Had we bid it and done it as a standalone project, it was estimated to cost 40 to 50% more.
And we had savings from the dry run project that we could fit this in under.
Yeah, not necessarily part of it being paid for from the proceeds of Dry Run Creek's a better way to put that.
Yep, that clears it up.
Okay, do we have a motion on this?
I'll move Resolution 1653, authorizing the purchase of permanent drainage easements for the Fifth Avenue Northeast Box Culvert Project. Permanent drainage easements for the following locations: Francis and Margaret Keneally's property at 2000 Fifth Avenue Northeast for $1,112.50 plus $500, and the Tadek, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Family LLC's property at 2001 Fifth Avenue Northeast for $667.50 plus $500.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Go ahead and have a roll call vote.
Just one last question. So this got added on to the dry run project, and are we saying that it's not going to add any extra expense because there's enough savings currently in that project that will cover this cost completely?
That's correct.
So no increase to taxpayers by doing this based off of our projections of what we thought the dry run was going to cost.
Yep, that's correct.
And since Wes brought that up, just for my information, how much are we saving on the dry run project? How much are we under what we thought we would have to spend?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I'd be happy with a really ballpark figure.
Hey, Mike, we can, in upcoming council meeting, we can try to give you an update as far as where we're at.
Okay.
I think part of it was that on the bond proceeds side, we ended up with more net cash than we anticipated when we issued the bonds.
A lot of times during that time, they were throwing premiums out at the same rates, and it was not uncommon to have extensive money past what you needed, and I think that's part of what you'll see here. They were buying additional funding from us to get that bond to resell it at a better coupon. So,
okay,
the project might be costing the same. We just got more money than what we thought we originally.
It could be a combination of both, being under an additional premium. We'll figure that out and get that to you.
That's cool.
Okay, thanks. Roll call vote.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Cade.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Lampy.
Yes.
Scherer.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes, a vote of 6-0 with one absent. Resolution 1653 passes. Item number 8 is Resolution 16-54, approving the agreement with Barron's Tate Consulting Group of Omaha, Nebraska to provide arbitrage rebate services for the city of Waverly. A little background, please.
Sure. Anytime you sell more than $5 million in bonds in a year, they would like you to have arbitrage calculations done. A lot of firms do it. PFM does it. They have a company out of New Jersey do it for them. Barron's Tate is a Midwest group that does a lot of them for cities and counties in the Midwest. We've used them before, or I've used them before, I should say, in Blackhawk County. Basically, arbitrage is when it's not allowed anymore. 86, they stopped letting people do that. They were borrowing money to invest it and try and make more money on what they borrowed. You can imagine some people weren't good at that. It went south. Bad things happened. You still got to pay that back. So this kind of prevents people from having the inclination, let's go do a bond early to try and take advantage of some increasing rates and make some money off it. If that were to happen, you have to pay it back to the federal government anyway. So, and when rates are increasing, like they're potentially going to happen in the next how many years, that's when these things can possibly occur. So you cannot make more money than what you're paying out on the bond. So if we're paying 5%, we can't make 6%. Normally, that's not a problem at the time you sell your bonds, but as rates can increase, that can actually occur. And so these guys are specialists. This is one of the couple things they do primarily for us to make sure we did not have any increase in our rate as far as money because of arbitrage, so we're not having to pay back the federal government. And they look at everything we spent over the time of the bond. We have some coming up in the next year, probably 5 years from the time you issue to get it done. And I think our 2012 series are the first batch over 5 million in a calendar year. So that was where the need to kind of get somebody on board to start these calculations came from. And so I'd like to go with Barron's Tate to do this for us.
I think everything you said sounds good. I guess this is the first time I've heard of this. So is there a reason why we wouldn't have done this in past when we sold well over 5 million in a year?
I don't know that we've sold more than 5 million in a calendar year very often prior to 2012.
Yeah.
I don't remember if we did
Right.
for the dam or not.
Not to 2012, yeah.
Right. 12, I think, is the first year, and so 5 years, fiscal 17 coming, that's when we got to get them done. And so we will just provide to them how the expenditures are made. They will look at the rates at the time they were made, make sure the calculations coincide with the coupons and the bond rates, and that everything went just fine. But again, as rates increase, there is a possibility this could occur, so it's kind of great to have it now. Because if you still had money left 4 or 5 years from the time you issued, which I would hope we would not, that's another thing we can't really be doing, is we got to spend what we've bonded for. Those kind of work hand in hand. Then this would ensure the government that we did not have this occur. We can probably do them ourselves. I just assume they put their signature on it, though, as specialists that are known and trusted by the feds. If they sign off, it's good, then it's good.
Good to know we're not out there investing in pound sterling or something.
That's right.
Like that, 'cause that'd been a bad
Trying to
idea.
get that British investment we don't want now. We don't want that. So, but that was happening. People were making money on it. People were losing money on it. They decided to eliminate it, I believe, 1986. So this keeps everybody from getting crazy with their bond money.
We get a motion.
I move Resolution 1654 approving the agreement with Barron's Tate Consulting Group, Omaha, Nebraska, to provide arbitrage rebate services for the city of Waverly for a maximum amount of $3,500 per bond, base or plus out-of-pocket expenses when necessary.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. We have a roll call vote for this.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Gade?
Yes.
Scher?
Yes.
Angus?
Yes.
Lampy?
Yes.
Vote of 6-0 with one absent. Resolution 1654 passes. Item number 9 on the agenda is take action directing language to be proposed on proposition of imposing a local option sales and service tax or lost election. So let's go ahead, and we've had discussion on this a little bit, but kind of review kind of what we're talking about.
Yes, sir. Last time we discussed it, we had a number of different options that were there, different language. We kind of settled on similar language with different percentages. And so the first one being 100% of the amount of money would be for streets and bridges, trail, river, parking-related improvements, infrastructure, et cetera, as it's listed. There was talk about designating some towards streets and bridges, so we came up with, well, maybe you do a 75-25 split or a 50-50 split. And that's kind of where we let it set. Because, again, streets and bridges, we've talked about the trail system, not new trails necessarily, but again, if a future council wanted to do that, they could. But trail repairs, what our initial thoughts are. And then, parking-related improvements, as we've discussed the need for parking, whether it's downtown or similar areas. And then public safety vehicles-related equipment is kind of a split. Where do we go with that? So that's the options that we have in there. Again, similar except for the percentages. And some of that is based on, do you want to give the leeway for council to make those decisions as they go forward year to year? Or do you want to tie down some percentages to make sure the allowances are there? The only caveat we had there is say it would take 80% for a project, or 55%, you would not be able to do it. Or you'd be forced to put 75% or 50% towards a project, whether you had it or not. And that was the only real discussion we had as far as going away from the 100% being the reason we may not. But again, we'll leave that to council to discuss and kind of ascertain the best use of that funding. At least the language should be presented for vote this fall.
I guess I'll start off, and that was kind of my thought on that with the 100%. For these items, we are restricting it to these items. We're not going to be able to put it into some other things, but gives us some flexibility then to decide if we need 80% for one thing one time, or we have a big purchase and something else that we need to find some funding for it. We've got that flexibility of we are limiting ourselves into what we can spend it on. We're not allowing it for salary or anything like that, but it gives future councils some flexibility over. This would be a 20-year lifespan of the loss, so it does give some flexibility over that lifespan for year-to-year adjustments as needed for that purpose.
I mean, I was probably the one that voiced a concern about making sure that streets was a high priority, and again, I'm talking residential streets, and initially I thought having some type of percentage split in there would help with that. But by the same token, I think we need to trust ourselves and future councils to make appropriate decisions, and I would hate for us to tie their hands by having a percentage in there. So I guess personally, I'm back to 100% for the items that we've spelled out here. And
I also support 100% for the reasons that have already been articulated. I don't need to repeat those.
I agree. I think that makes sense. I really think the flexibility is a good idea, even though somehow it would be good to indicate that I believe in doing something about streets in our town. But I do think that keeping that at 100% makes sense.
I think if we vote, you do the 100%. I don't agree with the language. I think it includes too much stuff. It's more, it just, it's kind of, I've voiced this before, so it basically includes almost everything we do. I mean, you have parks, you have streets, you have bridges, you have trails, rivers, you got vehicles we're buying with it. So to me, it just, if I was a citizen and you're trying to sell me to vote for this, and I want to know what you're going to use my money for, this looks like you can just use it for anything you want, instead of something that I know that I'm voting for something specific that's going to benefit my town. So I think it's too wide. It gives too much, different uses for it in the future. But that's my opinion. I'd rather see it more narrowed down and more specific.
Dan or Dave?
I agree with you on one point, that be nice to focus it on certain areas, but it is a 20-year program too, so things change over 20 years. I don't want to Dan's point.
I think articulating specifically what those several things are, granted it's not just one or two things, but at least then the citizens, I think, can have an idea about, what kinds of things will be covered, whereas I think the other language is even vaguer than that, the original language. It didn't specifically list what it could be used for.
The original as in what's in place right now, or what they came up with?
I thought what was in place right now,
What's
but I
in
could
place
be
now
wrong.
goes to roadways or public safety, which really was the jail and the fire station, and then roads.
Okay, so maybe it was what was proposed then, but
Proposed, I think there was a blanket statement.
Yeah.
Basically,
maybe that's what I'm remembering.
Any legal option or whatever it was.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to bring this up, but once we decide on the language, are there plans on how to market this within the community, or is city staff going to do that? Do we as a council
We can't legally
recommend a steering
promote this.
committee?
From the city side, we can't really promote this or deny this either way. If the group wanted to do it on their own to do that, that's one thing, but we can't go and actually put up signs, do this, promote that. A lot of times it's people in favor of or people against of, it depends on where you sit, that go out and try to sway the vote, market it, whatever it may be, brochures. Not being here the first time, how was this done the first time?
There was a task force assigned
Okay.
for the most recent one, and they did promote it. In fact, the person who does my hair was on it, so.
So there could be something similar to that. If there were people that agreed or wanted to do something like that, that'd be the way it would have to go. We as a council and staff really could not go out and promote this.
That wasn't a task force appointed by the council.
That's what she called it. I don't know. I'd have to find out more about it.
A citizens group that got together to do it?
Yeah, I think that is it, but.
We can look up that item and see what was done the first time.
I'm somewhat familiar on the school bond issue from that the school can't even really call for
Same
it.
thing.
Have to have
Same
a
thing.
petition to do it. We can set the vote or call for a vote. Unlike the school board doesn't have the authority they can call for it after a petition comes to them, but we have the authority to start that. Sorry about that at home.
Yeah, same thing. You can't promote school bond passage. You can't, as a member of that, promote that. Same thing here. Okay, so
Dave, you have any input on this? You just got here.
Yeah.
How'd you do?
Sorry, yeah, we won our baseball game. Sorry,
Good.
I was late. My only, and just for conversation's sake, looking at I appreciate all the examples from the other communities. One thing I noticed, there's not really, there's not too much discussion there about the public safety vehicles. Maybe, I guess I just kind of to throw that out, if we're trying to limit it, is there a reason that the others don't? I wonder if they're doing something different, or, like, I'm not saying it's for or against, that's one thing I notice is there pretty much, the other examples are pretty much around streets or parks or repairs to streets.
Well, there are a
They
couple
chose
that,
to do it.
yeah, there's a couple that specify.
A couple are just, the open.
That's how we did change, I don't know, was it 3 years ago? We finally, 3 years ago, we put police cars budget took it out of the general fund and moved it into loss. So Waverly had always paid that out of the general fund until either Phil's first budget or second budget, that it got moved into the loss. And now it specifically spells it out. Why before, our current language is real generic about public safety use, because it was mainly for the jail and the fire station. And so the language was generic enough to allow police cars and other, public safety equipment. Why this probably spells it out, but we never used to take money out of loss for vehicles until about 3 years ago. So.
Yep. And I'm totally, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if that had something to do with the large projects that we did put it to being paid off and then having funds available for it. So it would have been hard to fund the public safety vehicles when you're paying for the jail and the fire station and those type of things.
Yeah, when he did.
And actually, the current one that we have in play right now reads 100% for law enforcement and public safety projects, including acquisition of equipment and construction of capital improvements, for drainage and flood control improvements, and for street, alley, and parking improvements and related infrastructure.
So it's really kind of the other way. It's more for public.
Because it was,
primarily for the jail.
The jail.
Yeah.
Jail got built.
Further discussion, or we have a motion on an option?
I think maybe just in closing, I want to just kind of bring that up for discussion purposes. One of the last times I talked about, every year we would probably create goals for this, like any other funds that we would have available. Maybe that dictates how we would use it. And I think, several people made the point that from year to year, our priorities might change. We might pay off a road project, and then next year we might need to pay for a fire truck, that type of thing, or police equipment. So maybe it's okay.
I'll move approval of option number 1 for language.
Clarification, that's the 100% for streets and bridges, trail, river, or parking-related improvements in infrastructure and public safety vehicles and related equipment.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Does this just be a voice vote, correct? Okay, voice vote from the council. All in favor of going with option 1, say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, say no.
No.
By majority, yes, the option passes. Go with option 1 to push forward with that. Item 10 on the agenda then is review process for sale of capital equipment. And this is, Mike kind of prepared it. I don't know if James wants to lead this or
Actually,
Mike to
like Jerry, go ahead and take the lead in this. We have some equipment we're kind of dealing with, and that's what kind of prompted this discussion. So, if you would, Mike.
Well, we, looking at like motorized equipment, got a flatbed truck that we're looking at disposing of, the snow blower that goes on the front end loader, and then we also have some older dumpsters, containers that don't work with our existing trucks. And so question came up that if we don't have an opportunity to do a trade-in, or if we don't get a bid for a trade-in, how do we go about disposing of some of this equipment? And so the snow blower is an example of one of those items. We simply didn't get a trade-in offer, and we want to dispose of it. So how do we go about doing that? And upon researching our policy, we have acquisition policy, but we don't have a disposition policy for disposing of different types of equipment. In the past, there's been like a city auction, but there can just be a variety of equipment, and so we thought it would be of value to have the conversation with the city council. We have purchase policies for acquisition of equipment and supplies. Like if it's up to $3,000, we may get quotes on it. If it's $3,000 to $10,000, it'd be sealed bids. Over $10,000, it would be sealed bids with council approval for the acquisition of budgeted items. So, we're kind of looking for some direction or for some guidance here through our internal staff discussion. We were thinking maybe simply reversing that acquisition policy into the disposition of equipment. So if it was budgeted to replace the big snow blower, we did that, but we didn't get a trade-in. Could we simply go out and seek offers for the snow blower or advertise for the sale and take bids for it? If it's under $10,000 and it was planned for and identified, then would we simply just, with director approval, accept the bids and dispose of the equipment? So, James, I don't know if you want to offer any additional thoughts on this.
Well, I think that's kind of what we're trying to get at is, we don't want to burden you with every small thing we're disposing of, whether it's small equipment things, maybe $500, $1,000. We're looking at maybe that to be to the directors, as long as we're aware, dispose it accordingly. $3,000, $4,000, and $10,000, I would look at it as well as a director, make sure that we got the bids we thought were appropriate. And over $10,000, it would come to you as a council to say we should dispose of it, or if we need to set a minimum price, or if we set a minimum price and it's not realized, do you want to still sell it? I mean, there would be some guidelines we're trying to create that would allow you to have that oversight on the more sizable projects to make sure we got the best funding we could for the city. But the smaller things, we would try to get the best that we could through. I know the league has websites that are up for this. A lot of times you'll find used equipment, and smaller communities are looking for snow blowers, fire trucks, cars. They're looking for that because they can't buy a $500,000 truck, but they can buy a $100,000 used truck. That stuff actually pops up quite a bit. I've seen quite a few of them already for sale. So we're looking at maybe utilizing those sites for the specialty items, but maybe taking bids in general on some of the more common things that really don't have that specific need that other communities might want. And so we're looking to draft a policy and eventually probably bring that back to council. We're just wanting some feedback on what you think some of that might work or look like, or what your thoughts are on whether it's parameters or just how you'd like to see it happen.
I like reversing what our current policy is as far as purchasing, and kind of doing that. My only question was kind of goes to the setting the minimum price, and is there any, authority to be able to do that in a closed session so that we're not kind of handicapping ourselves similar to what we do with real estate when we're looking at setting up?
I don't know if it's specific to real estate itself, but
I remember the language
probably
specifically
not.
says real estate, but I don't know if there's any way that we can do that in a way that says.
But even if we did it publicly, it'd be the minimum bid, and if it's what's fair and people are aware of it, then they're going to do at least the minimum bid.
Okay.
And then you have to guess, if you're another bidder, well, is that going to be the true low bid? Do I need to go a little higher? But as long as you set it
for it that drives it,
and you're okay if that's exactly what you get that you set, then it should not be an issue, I wouldn't think.
Okay.
I like the idea of having a policy and setting the parameters and thresholds for that, too. I guess I'm just wondering about the advantages and maybe disadvantages of doing a sealed bid versus some other form of bidding.
Well, yeah, there's, it was brought up about doing auctions and those types of things. If we have a 10-year-old pickup that we're looking at disposing of and we didn't like the trade-in value was felt to be, substantially low and that we could advertise the sale of it. So, you can simply set a value and say it's for sale for $4,000. Or, is it just open-ended? Like if you want to sell your car, you just put it up there. The concern we have with that is then probably you're going to eliminate any city employee from having the option to make an offer on it, because that would be seen as possibly inappropriate. But if you did a sealed bid, then a city employee could also, I think, fairly make an offer on the vehicle. Going to auction, then there is a commission that you're going to pay.
Yeah.
So we also want to be careful about careful in how much we advertise and how much we expense in advertising. Not how much we advertise, but how much we expense in advertising to try to dispose of equipment. And that's where we have sometimes office chairs, file cabinets, older. When public services moved out, we left a lot of 50-year-old or 60-year-old office furniture. So what should be done with that? And this is where, given whether it's office furniture or whether it's vehicles, there might be very different avenues to solicit offers on those pieces of equipment.
Yeah, I think sounds great to me. And I mean, and utilizing Facebook, Craigslist, those kind of things. And like you said, the League of Cities has their own website. I mean, those are all free to publicize on and put things out there. As everyone knows, you get tons of responses from that stuff. So,
How much stuff are we talking about? Does this happen often, or? See, the bigger specialty stuff is pretty rare, snow blowers and that. But we get a miscellaneous smaller things and just.
I was just thinking, like the snow blower, you're probably wanting, if somebody will haul it away, it's probably a good thing, maybe.
Well, we're looking at
surprised actually what people will buy those for smaller communities.
With that snow blower, we're looking at reaching out to the surrounding communities. There's some websites that we can
value in that still?
Take advantage of, but also contractors may be interested because during the wintertime, a lot of our grading and paving contractors, do snow removal. You'll see that right here in town. So the addition of a snow blower for them might be something for them to consider.
no, and that's why advertising on all those places hits even your local small contractors that do snow removal for parking lots for companies. Maybe that's something that things that they need.
I like the sealed bid offer mostly because it probably, there's, you can get into Sarbanes-Oxley type situations and all that. If, plus an employee that knows the equipment well and they have a need for it, in a good, transparent way, people can put in a sealed bid, and if they're the winner, then they're the winner, and.
Yeah, and I agree, and it doesn't prevent city employees from buying stuff, because like you said, in an auction, if you got some parks person bidding up a truck, I mean, it's not going to look right, so. Or they probably wouldn't even be allowed.
Actually, it might look really good if the mechanic's bidding on the vehicle.
That's true,
So,
but I mean.
And that we think that would be a fair way to do it, but simply
Sealed bid, it would be easier.
and sealed bid would be good too. But
without having it be.
if you're simply going to advertise in the paper that the pickup's for sale for $4,000 and they're right there, that probably doesn't sit well.
Right, that too, yeah.
I wonder too if, I don't know if we would know how to set a price. And, if we're trying to trade it off, it might, if they don't want the trade, that might be a good indication of its value, maybe. And then, if we do sealed bids, I don't know. To me, that seems like the best way to do it.
No, I agree.
I went and asked on my ClerksNet, other towns how they've done it. One town responded that they actually use govdeals.com, and they actually got more than they anticipated from a piece of equipment, and it went to, not saying that all of them have to, we'd prefer they stay locally, but it went to Mexico, but they paid for it.
Probably
so-
better, we don't want it local. And do they have to
This
put a
is-
price on it then, or?
Yeah, I mean, they
Okay.
had to.
It's kind of an auction site,
Already
Wave.
made. Oh.
There's a lot of them that do it, and there is money to be made. We used to get $500-600 for toll cars, and went to actually an eBay account in the county, and they started going to Chicago for taxis.
Yeah,
Like paying thousands for them because parts weren't available, and they could do it. And so you never know what somebody else looks at that and sees versus what we see it as. So.
Personally, I would kind of think that I would leave it up to you to maybe figure out a good way to do it, because I don't.
But I guess that's what we're
We'll
saying.
bring a
is
policy
up
back to you.
Yeah,
It'll come
a
back to
policy.
you. once
We're going to
done.
leave it up to them unless it's over $10,000 or something.
Call a fire truck.
Oh, okay.
Then they would come to us and
Yeah.
we set it up.
If it was real small, we'd let the director do it. If it gets to be 3 to 10, I'd intercept, and we'd also try to figure it out. And then over 10, it's going to come to you.
But a sealed bid wouldn't allow for what Carla just described.
Yeah, that's the problem, yeah.
Well, that's why I don't care how, like Mike said, it's going to determine on what we're selling. So.
I actually drafted a rough draft of a a policy on Friday, but as staff, we haven't had a chance to review it yet. But there were each different levels of when it would come to council, when it wouldn't, and each level had like 5 or 6 different options that you could use for any particular item.
Some may make sense, sealed bid, some may not. So, John,
John's got some.
Selling things by sealed bid, I don't know of any of you around this table that would sell something with a sealed bid and accept that sealed bid. You don't see at estate auctions by sealed bid. You just don't do that. I would say that the idea of getting a bid or setting a minimum value to determine who's interested in it, but reserving the right to auction between those people that were willing to give that minimum value so that you optimize what you're going to get for it. That snowblower is a good example. You might set a sealed bid or a minimum bid and advertise that at $5,000. If you get no interest, you might have to re-advertise at something less. But if you got 5 quotes or 5 people that gave you a bid of $5,000, how do you determine who you're going to sell it to? I think that the best way is to see who's interested for that minimum price and get those. And with the miracles of email, Facebook Messenger, telephone conference call, get those 5 people on the phone and auction it off. I've seen that done in communities, and it worked fine. But you can optimize your money that way. I can't think of selling anything by a sealed bid. That just doesn't seem like good stewardship to me.
That's a lot. When I sell stuff on eBay, you put a minimum price, and then it goes from there. And at least you've saved yourself from losing out on a chunk of money.
My only deal is we're a public entity, and kind of what Mike was saying, then there's no questions. That's why I would be in favor of a sealed bid. We can maximize the profit on some of this stuff, but
I don't know how I don't know how it works. If I'm guessing it probably is legal for a city employee to buy city stuff, but
sure, yeah.
If it was a fair way to do it, then absolutely.
Yeah. We probably don't want these folks to be in the used equipment business either, unless they want to be. But.
I guess that was the question I kind of had. Half of it's been answered is how do we allow city staff to be part of this if they want to purchase? The other side is the back end of it. Where's the separation of duties as far as who's advertising it, who's accepting it, who's taking possession of the cash, those type of things, which I'm sure you've all thought about and will build into the process. But we just don't want way A deciding it's time to sell a snow blower and selling it to employee B and the money never show up type thing. But I know they'd never do that, but again, just having a policy that makes sure those type of things can't fall through the cracks.
So is this utility truck actually for sale? Or is it just an example? The picture I'm looking at.
Yes.
Oh, see, that looks like a pretty nice truck. That I'm
That's the one
interested,
we
but
just replaced, right? That we
It's for sale, you want it?
yeah,
How can you tell from the
$10.
picture?
a one-ton truck, right?
Well, yeah, and you can lift stuff, but I mean, this would be like you say. There's value in this. The snow blower, but you know, maybe there's some examples of this that we'd have to do a different way, and there's quite a bit of money.
I think David has a glint in his eye. He's looking at that truck.
You approved the bid to replace this. It was just a couple months ago.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but you know, as a point, there's some of this stuff that has some good value for you know, it's got a crane on the back and quite a lot of good equipment. It looks like it's in good shape. Obviously, it's probably ridden hard and has a lot of miles on it.
It's got some age to it.
Yeah, yep. So that's why it's hard for all of us and you to put a value on it. So
We'll zoom the picture out a little further when we sell it, too. We'll zoom that picture out a little further when we sell it. Advertise it
You want
that
to throw
way.
in a snowblade, will you?
All right, so we'll look forward to getting.
We'll develop
more
a
on that.
policy then and give something to you to kind of sign off on, if you would.
Okay, that's it for regular business. We do have reports from boards and commissions received from the W Monthly Revenue from April, Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors minutes. Any input from people over there? Okay, well,
Good group of folks trying to do a lot of good things for the community, and I know they've active with some of the Highway 3 reconstruction, that type of thing, so.
looked like they were pretty solid on their golf outing.
Yep.
Monthly financials from May, Bremer Waverly Law Board. Have somebody on that now, or is that?
Yes.
You two are both on that. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Library Board of Trustees. 2 from Planning and Zoning, the workshop, and then the regular meeting in June. Again, Bremer Waverly Law Board, and then Waverly Senior Calendar from June. So we'll accept those. And then the next one goes on to staff comments.
I have none, sir, unless staff, I believe Tab does. Actually.
Tab has his hand
Oh,
raised.
that's right. Tree comments.
I'll go ahead and read this, if I could. A community icon is at the end of life. The bur oak tree outside the Civic Center will be coming down sometime in the next year. During a forestry training session put on by the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, discussion was about tree health and hazardous trees. After the session, the DNR Forest Health Program leader was asked to look at the bur oak in front of the Civic Center for signs of health issues. The DNR expert saw several areas indication of decline. The leaves are all next to the main branches in short growths. There are no leaves extending out on longer, smaller branches. This is a sign of stress. There's a root fungus evident around the bottom of the tree, and there's a history of a large mass of fungus around the bottom of the tree. These are evidence of root decay. The ground on the west side of the tree is slightly raised, and on the east side of the ground is slightly receded, so the tree is actually leaning to the east right now. And the city has already installed 2 braces to help prevent the tree from splitting, but the split is evident, and there's obviously decay in the split. The expert was asked about the amount of time left, and he estimated 2 to 3 years at the most. The safety issues wasn't paramount in this undertaking. The DNR guide is likelihood of failure, likelihood of impact, and consequences of failure. In this situation, there would be consequences of property and personal safety. The DNR program has been very valuable in the education of staff and some volunteers on urban forestry. The downside is that during the education sessions and the inventory of trees on public spaces, staff has been made aware of some significant issues in our community that need to be addressed now in the near future. Unfortunately, the Civic Center bur oak is something that needs addressing now. This will go to the paper tomorrow. You got to remember the bur oak is a live organism, and they do have lifespans. Actually, this one extended its lifespan by about 25 years when we built the container that's in. Typically, they don't last this long. But it's been a wonderful thing, and we probably need to do something fitting before we take it down. I don't know. We've talked about carvings. We've talked about some sort of monument, those types of things.
Yeah, I know a lot of people took a lot of effort to save that tree when this building was built, so I'm sure there's a lot of interest in it.
Yep. That's all I have.
Well, and the hardest part of that too is we saw a tree that went down in the cemetery that was probably 70 feet tall.
Yeah, a red oak
The way it
in the
did,
cemetery.
similar stuff at the base starting as what we're seeing in the Baroque. Similar issues, similar problem, similar weakness.
If it would have fallen east, it would have taken out two houses. Yeah. It was on the very east end of the cemetery.
So to have our Baroque out here, how old is it?
It was, I think it was 215 when we did it, when we saved it 25 years ago. So we're thinking it's about 240 years old.
140?
Yeah.
That's
one of the oldest in
There's a
state.
big.
An old
It was
one.
a big thing to save it when this building was built. That's why it's carved out of the.
Well, it's huge. I mean, just massive trunk.
Well, it was going to be torn down, but I mean, the alternative was to save it. But yeah.
No, I'm just talking about the age.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
Okay, let's go with city council comments.
I guess I was not alerted the mayor was not going to be here. Does anyone know where he is or why he was not here? I didn't get an email or a text or anything.
He's up north. I probably should have sent it out because I think he was on his way out one day.
I just think, as a mayor, you should probably notify your council if you're going to be gone, especially the pro tem who didn't even know he had to run the meeting.
He may have
Walked
said
in.
something, remember him saying back in May when I did it, but I don't recall if it was 2 days or
Oh.
jumbled in my head right now.
Just a
I'm on
comment.
summer break. It's,
Email's easy to use, so.
Dan?
Nothing here.
Mike?
Nope, thanks.
Edie?
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Dan? Dave? Nope. Vern, you guest councilman?
Well, I guess the only thing that I would say is that this was my first opportunity to do this as a guest. It has been an interesting experience for the 3 meetings that I've been here. Thank you, Mike, for inviting me to do that. Each of you should be congratulated for the amount of effort that you put into these meetings and the other meetings that you attend during the course of a month. We thank you for that as the community.
We have one communication or stories for good from John Tevin on the both the community sharing gardens and on the handicap swing. Both some nice things that we do with that within the community. For mayor's comments, I did have a small list of a couple things I wanted to ask as mayor pro tem, actually. On the dry run, the new section there right by 4th Street and 2nd Avenue, there's some washout on that new, that was anticipated, or was it just something that needs to get kind of secured before?
Well, it wasn't anticipated, but it's not unexpected either. We have another one down by 4th Avenue Southwest. Okay. So, we're kind of in that stage where the vegetation's trying to get established, trying to get rooted, and we had a very significant rainfall. So we anticipate that this can happen, and we'll go back in and repair it and get reestablished and provide some additional reinforcing while the grasses are trying to get established.
And then my other question was on the vegetation. This is I'm assuming this is similar to the vegetation when we put it in the median there on 4th Street by Hy-Vee and whatnot that we did with first planting of this taller grass, wheat, or whatever it is.
Well, it's a blend, and this is biennial ryegrass. You can think of it as quick growing to try to help mitigate possible erosion. It's also known as like a nurse crop. The permanent vegetation is planted at the same time, and that's coming in underneath. The biennial ryegrass will die off, and you may see a little bit of it next year, but eventually that just goes away.
And we did something similar with that, if I remember right, with the median, that it had some taller stuff that grew pretty fast.
Very quick,
First year, and
fast
then
growing,
into the wildflower type stuff.
primarily prevent erosion, but helps that permanent grass get established.
The other question I had is just kind of coming up with Heritage Days coming up, and we got pamphlets here with our stuff. Dry Run Creek, are we going to be clear there for 6th Street and travel along that for the parade route, or is that going to have to be rerouted? Or
I would, at this point, plan on rerouting. We're 3 weeks out, and I just can't give any guarantees that it will be, so I think they need a plan to reroute the parade.
Okay. That was a question I had, because my wife was talking about looking for shade trees on 6th Street there, so she's like, wait, are they going to be done? I wasn't sure. Okay, and the last thing I would have then is just to wish everybody a happy 4th of July this coming weekend, and that's next Monday, so we do not have a council meeting next Monday, but we will have one on the 11th as our first for July. We have any other motions? Move, we adjourn? There we go, but that's what I was looking for. If we move to adjourn, we are adjourned. Thank you. I'm the one that usually does.